Chapter 2697. After the ice dragon left, the power of rules did not descend again. Heaven and earth gradually calmed down. The special evil force in Fallen Valley no longer existed. Now it looked like an ordinary canyon. And with the disappearance of the evil force, there was not a single blood puppet left. All of them self-destructed and turned into ashes. Obviously, without this special evil force, the blood puppets would not be able to survive. You can already fly. Suddenly, a cry of surprise sounded, breaking the silence. Qin Feiyang and Madman came back to their senses and turned their heads to see Wang Ming standing in the air with a face full of joy. You can fly? The two looked at each other and also rose into the air. It was really possible. In other words, the force that prevented living beings from flying had disappeared. Strange. Why did this force disappear? Madman frowned. It can't be related to the Blood Demon Tower, Qin Feiyang said. Blood Demon Tower? Madman was stunned. Look, it's the Blood Demon Tower that absorbed all the evil force, right? After the evil force disappeared, all the blood puppets here also disappeared. And, as the Blood Demon Tower entered your body, the force that shrouded Fallen Valley also dissipated. Doesn't all this mean that it's related to the Blood Demon Tower? Qin Feiyang said. According to what you said, Fallen Valley was already in the Blood Demon Tower? Madman was stunned. It should be like this. Qin Feiyang nodded. Inside the Blood Demon Tower, one could not activate the God Arts and Battle Soul. Outside, one could not fly. This heaven-defying artifact seemed to be very powerful. But the most terrifying thing was not these abilities, but the evil force that was absorbed by the Blood Demon Tower. That evil force was completely different from the evil force outside. Even the Blood Demon clan could not absorb it. Moreover, once eroded by this evil force, one would become a blood puppet. This was a very terrifying ability. Whoosh. Suddenly, the Beast Emperor looked around and suddenly soared into the air, turning into a stream of light and breaking through the air. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and shouted, Wang Ming, Yangli, stop him. Whoosh. Wang Ming and the other two instantly teleported to block Beast Emperor from the front and back. Bastard! Who gave you the guts to stop me? The Beast Emperor shouted. Wang Ming said with a smile. Of course it was young Lord who gave us the courage. Old thing. If it was in the past, we might have been afraid of you. After all, you're a great success immortal. But now, even if we return to the Divine Prefecture, we have nothing to fear. Yang Li sneered. The Beast Emperor's physical body was destroyed, and his divine soul was shattered. He had taken over someone else's body. It was better in the Underworld King's hell. This was because Wang Ming and Yang Li's cultivation had been suppressed to the Great Perfection 9th Heaven stage. But once they left Hell and returned to Shenzhou, Wang Ming and Qin Haodong would instantly return to peak condition. With their strength, it was still possible for them to wipe out the Beast Emperor's soul. Therefore, the current Beast Emperor could no longer intimidate them. The Beast Emperor's expression was extremely ugly. His former subordinate had become his mortal enemy. What a joke. But the key point was, there was nothing he could do. What to do? He was afraid that Qin Feiyang would attack him, so he wanted to escape when no one was paying attention. However, he didn't expect Qin Feiyang to react so quickly. Swoosh. Suddenly, Yi Zhong took a step forward, looked at Wang Ming and Yang Li, and said in a deep voice, What if I join in? Wang Ming and Yang Li raised their eyebrows and couldn't help but look at Qin Feiyang. Yi Zhong was Qin Feiyang's prey, so they didn't dare to touch him. Qin Feiyang looked at Yi Zhong, then at the Beast Emperor, and finally at Wang Ming and Yang Li. He reminded them, without my permission, no one is allowed to leave. Understood. The two nodded and looked at Yi Zhong and the Beast Emperor with sneers in their eyes. Obviously, young Lord had already decided to lay his cards on the table. Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and took out the ancient city of Qingyu. He erased the blood contract and walked up to Qingyu. Senior, I'll return this to you. Qingyu caught the ancient city of Qingyu and looked at Qin Feiyang with an apologetic expression. You don't have to blame yourself. We'll always be friends. Nothing will change that. Qin Feiyang smiled. Thank you. Qingyu smiled gratefully. Qin Feiyang looked at the old man in blood-red clothes next to him and said indifferently, I can let you off once more for Senior King Yu's sake. But, remember, this is the last time. If you dare to scheme against us again, I'm sorry. Even if you're Senior King Yu's father, I'll make you pay a heavy price. Murderous intent flashed in Qin Feiyang's eyes. The old man in blood-red clothes narrowed his eyes. Although the other party was only at initial 9 heavens realm, he felt a great sense of danger. It was as if he was being stared at by the god of death. He couldn't help but panic. Brother Qin, don't worry. I'll definitely persuade my father in the future. I also believe that after seeing your ability, he won't act recklessly again. King Yu transmitted his voice. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Aya, don't just stand there. Suddenly Frenzy shouted. What's the matter? Qin Feiyang and King Yu turned to look at Frenzy. There's no evil force here now, nor are there any blood puppets. Moreover, it can fly. With such a good opportunity, of course, we have to quickly search Fallen Valley. Frenzy said. That's right. Qin Feiyang slapped his head and almost forgot about the important matter. Because of the young man, they didn't carefully search Fallen Valley later, and went straight to the depths. Therefore, there were still many divine items that hadn't been discovered. King Yu waved his hand, and the 10 commanders appeared. He shouted, Search Fallen Valley immediately. Yes. The 10 of them replied respectfully before dispersing in all directions. Search with divine sense. Frenzy reminded. Divine sense? Qin Feiyang was stunned. It turns out that it's because of that evil force that erodes divine sense, so it can't be used. But now that the evil force has disappeared, divine sense can naturally come in handy. Frenzy smiled. That's good. Qin Feiyang smiled. Using divine sense to search was much more convenient, and the efficiency was much higher than before. With the cultivation of the 10 commanders, it didn't take long to search the entire Fallen Valley. There's a discovery. This is the aura of a seal. Soon. Shueda's excited voice came from afar. The aura of a seal. Qin Feiyang and Frenzy looked at each other. This must be a heaven-defying divine item. Suddenly, the two of them seemed to have thought of something and looked at the young man beside them at the same time. But unexpectedly, hearing Shueda's voice, the young man didn't react at all, and his whole person once again entered that listless and yawning state. Let's go, the young man said. The snow python that was lying on his shoulder immediately jumped down, and its body expanded in the wind. In just a moment, a snow python that was hundreds of feet long appeared. The young man took a step forward and walked onto the snow python's back. Where are you going? Qin Feiyang asked. Just strolling around. After saying that, the young man lay on the snow python's back and closed his eyes to take a nap. The snow python also rose into the air and flew into the distance. The Nether King's hell will only open for 1,000 years. Remember to go to the Godfiend's square. Qin Feiyang hurriedly reminded him. We know. You be careful too. The young man of the snow python gang replied, and disappeared into the sky without looking back. Looking at the back view of the snow python and the young man, King Yu asked suspiciously, Brother Qin, who exactly is he? I don't know. Qin Feiyang shook his head. You don't know? Qin Feiyang's answer surprised King Yu. Yes. But I know that he is an existence that can't be provoked. Qin Feiyang smiled. Hearing this, King Yu raised his head again and looked at the young man. He murmured, he is indeed very strong. So what if he is strong? The world is heartless. Even an existence like the ancestor can fall, let alone him. Sooner or later he will become a speck of dust in this world. The blood-red-clothed old man snorted. Ancestor. King Yu was stunned. He turned to look at the blood-red-clothed old man and asked curiously, How strong is the ancestor? How did he fall? The blood-red-clothed old man said, You are not qualified to know these things. King Yu couldn't help but frown. Qin Feiyang glanced at the blood-red-clothed old man. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and said inwardly, Senior brother frenzied. Could the giant you saw twice be the blood demon tribe's progenitor? I don't know. Crazy shook his head. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, and turned to look at the blood-red-clothed old man. He said, "Have you entered the evil moon?" The blood-red-clothed old man said, "You want to ask me if I know the origin of the blood bead in the evil moon?" "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Of course I know. But why should I tell you?" "Actually, I can tell you, but you have to return the blood demon tower to me." The blood-red-clothed old man sneered. "Forget it if you don't want to say it." Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and said, "Senior brother Crazy, be careful. Maybe he hasn't given up on possessing you." "Why should I be afraid of him? Didn't you see it in the blood demon tower? Even the blood demon tower is helping me. Not to mention that the blood demon tower is in my body now. He definitely doesn't have the guts. But then again, why would the blood demon tower help me? And why would they abandon this old thing and follow me?" Crazy mumbled. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and said, "Could it be that you are related to the ancestor of the blood demon tribe? How is that possible? Like you, this is my first time entering the Nether King's hell." Crazy was speechless. "That's true." Qin Feiyang nodded, thought for a while, and said, "Then have you obtained any inheritance or something like that?" "Inheritance?" Crazy thought for a while and shook his head. "No." Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "Then where did you get that spatial divine item?" "It was given to me by the old senior, who taught me the heaven-defying technique." Crazy transmitted his voice. Qin Feiyang said, "Then let's go find him." "Find him?" Crazy was taken aback. "That's right. He taught you the heaven-defying technique, and gave you this spatial divine item. He even told you that you must enter the Nether King's hell if you have the chance." "What does this mean?" "It means that he definitely knows your relationship with the Nether King's hell." Qin Feiyang said. "Makes sense." Crazy nodded, pondered for a moment, and said, "When we return to the Divine Land, accompany me to the northern region. Let's go find him." "He's in the northern region?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. "Yes." Madman nodded slightly. Chapter 2698. He's in the northern region, but he knows about hell. It seems that this person isn't simple. Qin Feiyang whispered. To be able to give me a divine art and a space divine object, he definitely isn't a simple person. It's just that I don't know much about him. As far as I can remember, I've only met him 3 times. The first time was when he gave me a space divine object. The second time was when he gave me a heaven-defying divine weapon. The third time was when he sent me off before I came to Divine Land. Madman said. "I really want to meet this mysterious person now." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. "Now?" Madman was speechless. "Let's not talk about this for now. How do we deal with Yi Zhong and Beast Emperor?" "They." Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered as he looked at Yi Zhong and Beast Emperor. He then walked over to Wang Ming's side. Yi Zhong immediately looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "You've really put in a lot of effort to get close to me. Do you think I want to?" "To be honest, I was forced to go to the Dragon God's Hall." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "Who forced you?" Yi Zhong frowned. "Who else could it be? My 2 ancestors." Qin Feiyang was helpless. Yi Zhong said, "Why did they want you to go to the Dragon God's Hall?" Qin Feiyang said, "Someone as smart as you shouldn't have thought of it." "I'm not in the mood to guess with you," Yi Zhong said in a deep voice. "All right. First, the Divine Stone of Fate. Second, you. The 2 ancestors said that they had to drag you to the Dragon Slayer Hall no matter what." Qin Feiyang said. "The Divine Stone of Fate." Yi Zhong's heart skipped a beat. This thing was extremely important. Once Qin Feiyang obtained the Divine Stone of Fate, it would be equivalent to controlling the fate of everyone in the Dragon God's Hall. This was to disintegrate the power of the dragons. Because the Dragon God's Hall was the most powerful force under the dragons. But drag him into the Dragon Slayer Hall? When Yi Zhong thought of this, he could not help but laugh. "Do you think that's possible? Although we haven't known each other for a long time, I know your temper. It's impossible for you to enter the Dragon Slayer Hall willingly. Also, is a person's Qin Feiyang is use, s where I is here. Like Wang Ming and Yang Li, They are subordinates of Venerable Beast and Venerable Cloud. Qin Feiyang said. Qin, you think you have the qualifications to make this old man work for you? Yi Zhong said furiously. No, no, no. You're not the one serving me. I'm the one serving you. As long as you leave the dragons, you'll still be my most respected master. I won't force you to do anything. Qin Feiyang said. Who do you think you are? Do I need you to serve me? Yi Zhong shouted. Why do you have to do this? As I said before, dragons bring disaster to the world. Their deaths are not to be regretted. Why do you have to let your name go down in history for the sake of dragons? Even if you don't think for yourself, think for Yi Shui, and the old man. They're under pressure too. Do you know why they live in seclusion deep in the mountains? Isn't it because they're afraid of being criticized behind their backs? Why can't you figure it out when even your brother can? Qin Feiyang sighed. My brother? Yi Zhong was stunned and said angrily. What did you do to Yi Cheng? I didn't do anything to him. He's definitely living a good life now. Furthermore, I have also treated him like an elder. Qin Feiyang said. Where is he? Yi Zhong looked at Qin Feiyang gloomily. He's trying to break through to the imperishable stage in the castle. I also helped him open all the doors of potential. To be honest, I saved the old man because of Yi Cheng. Qin Feiyang said. Yi Cheng, you're stupid. Yi Zhong howled with grief. Wasn't being with Qin Feiyang the same as betraying the dragons? If this matter were to be known by the dragon race, his Yi family would definitely be met with a calamity. It's useless to shout now. Even if Yi Cheng hears it, he won't be able to come out. We'll talk about it later. I think he's smart. The dragons are no longer the same as before. It's only a matter of time before they're destroyed. If you continue to follow the dragons, you'll only lose your reputation. Qin Feiyang said lightly. Not the same as before? Yi Zhong shook his head and smiled. Do you think the dragons will decline after you snatch their heaven-defying divine weapon? Let me tell you, it's impossible. Of course I'm not that naive. The dragons have the sovereign divine weapon, and the terrifying existence of the dragon god. But you have to believe in one thing. Water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize it. Whether it's a family, a sect, or a world, if you want to rule for a long time, you must first win the hearts of the people. But the dragons don't have these 2 points. Not only that, but they've angered the people and gods, and complaints are everywhere. The dragons have lost the hearts of the people. No matter how deep their foundation is, there will be a day when they'll be defeated. Qin Feiyang said lightly. Stupid, laughable. Yi Zhong looked at Qin Feiyang, his face full of mockery. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, At least it's better than being spurned by others. That's right. Even if we die in battle, our names will go down in history, and will be worshipped by the people. What about you? Even if you continue to live in this world, you'll only be a lowly, undignified, pitiful worm. Madman walked to Qin Feiyang's side and said. And who are you? Yi Zhong looked at Madman gloomily. Madman said proudly. I'm from the 9 Heaven Palace of the North region. 9 Heaven Palace. Yi Zhong raised his eyebrows and shouted. You're leading 9 Heaven Palace to destruction. Wrong. I'm leading 9 Heaven Palace to glory. This is also the wish of everyone in 9 Heaven's Palace. Let me tell you. The beings of the 4 regions hate dragons more than the beings of the divine land. Dragons are already rats on the street. Madman snorted. Yi Zhong looked at Qin Feiyang and said, So if this old man doesn't bow to you today, I won't be able to leave here alive? You can't say that. Although the 2 ancestors said that if I can't convince you, I'll kill you, but to be honest, I really don't want to hurt you. I won't let you make a decision now. I'll give you some time to think about it. You didn't hear wrong. You can leave now. I won't stop you. Qin Feiyang said. Yi Zhong couldn't help but frown. Don't think of me as such a despicable person. I won't use Yi Cheng to threaten you. Qin Feiyang said indifferently. Yi Zhong looked deeply at Qin Feiyang, then turned to the Beast Emperor and said, Let's go. Hearing this, the Beast Emperor couldn't help but smile bitterly. Why? Yi Zhong looked at him suspiciously. You don't understand. The Beast Emperor shook his head and sighed. Qin Feiyang also said, "You can leave, but he can't." "Why?" Yi Zhong raised his eyebrows. "Because he's one of the 4 sovereigns of the dragon-slaying palace, the Beast Emperor," Qin Feiyang said. "What?" Yi Zhong stared at the Beast Emperor in surprise. Looking at Yi Zhong's eyes, the Beast Emperor sighed deeply and nodded. "Yes, it's me." Yi Zhong couldn't believe it. This person who had been on good terms with him and had always been loyal to the Dragon Sovereign was actually a sovereign of the dragon-slaying palace. This was a nightmare for Yi Zhong. The Beast Emperor knew the dragons too well. He also finally understood why the dragon-slaying palace could avoid the dragon's pursuit. It turned out that the Beast Emperor was a spy. "Actually, you know Supreme Cloud too. She's the chief pavilion master of the treasure pavilion," Qin Feiyang said. "What?" Yi Zhong's eyes trembled. One lurked beside the Dragon Sovereign. One controlled at least half of the resources of the ancient world. And they were all leaders of the dragon-slaying palace. Terrifying, really terrifying. No wonder the dragon-slaying palace could develop so quickly. It turned out that they had the support of the treasure pavilion. The Beast Emperor looked at Yi Zhong, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Then he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "We can slowly resolve the grudge between us, but Yi Zhong must not leave." "Tell me your reason," Qin Feiyang said. "Tell him everything. When he goes back and reports to the Dragon Sovereign, won't the dragon-slaying palace face a disaster? Don't forget the principles of the dragon-slaying palace. No matter how we fight, we must not harm the overall interests of the dragon-slaying palace." The Beast Emperor said in a deep voice, "What you said does make sense." But he left his divine soul outside. "It's useless even if we kill him now," Qin Feiyang said. "Let's join forces to defeat him and forcibly control him. This is the only way to solve the problem now," the Beast Emperor said. "I'm sorry, but I never like to force others. We'll talk about it later. My master is also a smart person. He knows what to say and what not to say," Qin Feiyang said with a smile. The Beast Emperor frowned. Qin Feiyang looked at Yi Zhong and said, "Let's go and think about it. I'll wait for your news." Phew. Yi Zhong took a deep breath, turned into a stream of light, and tore through the sky at lightning speed. "Why are you so self-righteous? Do you know how loyal Yi Zhong is to the dragons? You're letting him go with such a good opportunity," the Beast Emperor roared. "He's indeed a loyal person, but he's also a person who cares about his family. Yi Qing being by my side is his biggest concern. Because once this matter is exposed, Long Zun will definitely not let Yi Qing off. He might even vent his anger on Yi Shui, or the old man, and Yi Zhong himself. Do you think Yi Zhong will let this happen?" Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The Beast Emperor felt that it made sense. He frowned and said, "Aren't you afraid of what if?" "There's no what if. Unless he gambles with the lives of his family on whether Long Zun will be angry or not. But the stakes are too high. I believe that he won't dare to do that." Qin Feiyang shook his head. The Beast Emperor snorted. "Then I hope it's really as you think. Let's talk about Yi Zhong later. Let's talk about the problem between us first," Qin Feiyang said with a smile. When the Beast Emperor heard this, he immediately became nervous. Chapter 2699. As for Yi Zhong's matter, Qin Feiyang already had a plan. Once he left hell, he could carry it out, so it didn't matter if he let Yi Zhong leave. But the Beast Emperor must be dealt with in hell. "I will only give you 2 choices. First, submit to me. Second, die in hell." Qin Feiyang looked at the Beast Emperor and said, "Is there a third choice?" The Beast Emperor's face sank as he asked. "No." Qin Feiyang shook his head. His decisive tone left no room for negotiation. "You have to think carefully, because you are different from Yi Zhong and the others. Yi Zhong and the others can be reborn if they die here. But you, if you die here, it is equivalent to a complete death. At that time, everything you have will become history." Madman said. "I shouldn't have followed you." The Beast Emperor's face was full of regret. "You can only blame yourself for being too greedy and wanting a heaven-defying treasure. But no matter what, we won't give you a chance to escape. Because even if you escape from Fallen Valley, we will continue to wait for you in the Demon God Square. Unless you don't plan to return to Divine Land. In fact, your biggest mistake is coming to Hell. Because once you come to Hell, you are like a turtle in a jar. No matter how hard you try, you can't escape from our hands. And if you can endure and not come to Hell, then we really can't do anything to you. Madman's face was full of ridicule. Hearing this, the Beast Emperor clenched his hands tightly, and his heart was extremely angry. He originally thought that with the power of the dragons, he would definitely be able to smoothly get rid of Qin Feiyang. Taking a step back, even if the dragons couldn't get rid of Qin Feiyang, the blood demons and beasts in hell were enough to take Qin Feiyang's life. In other words, for him there was no risk. However, he never expected that Qin Feiyang would actually be recognized by the blood demons and call them brothers. The most terrifying thing was, he even broke through to the Nine Heavens realm so quickly. Qin Feiyang was very strong to begin with, and there was also the blood demon race, which was even more terrifying than Qin Feiyang. In the end, it was him and the dragons who became Qin Feiyang's targets. How comical. Thinking back to the beginning, they had deliberately set up this trap and made it known to the public that Hell was the king of Hell. They wanted to use this opportunity to get rid of Qin Feiyang. But on the other hand, wasn't Qin Feiyang also waiting for this opportunity to get rid of them? This contest, whether it was him and the chief pavilion master, or Yi Zhong and the dragons, they had all lost completely. Hurry up and decide, Qin Feiyang said. The Beast Emperor raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyang, his eyes filled with sorrow. In any case, he was a big shot of the ancient world. Now he was actually forced to such an extent by a junior? Willing. He was definitely unwilling to accept it. If such a big shot like him were to submit to a junior, how would he have any face left in the future? I know it's hard for you to swallow your pride, but there's only one path in front of you. You don't have a choice. Don't think so highly of your pride. What you care about might be worthless in the eyes of others. Wang Ming sneered. Shut up. Even if I'm in my current state, I'm still not someone like you can compare to. The Beast Emperor shouted angrily. Someone like me? A hint of viciousness instantly crept onto Wang Ming's face. It was one thing for the Beast Emperor to be arrogant in front of him before, but now that he was a prisoner, he actually dared to be arrogant. Boom. A terrifying murderous aura roared out of Wang Ming's body. I also want to know, what kind of person was I in your eyes before? Yang Li also stared coldly at the Beast Emperor. The best way to deal with stubborn people is to kill them directly. Ghost King also spoke at this moment. He took a step forward and landed next to Qin Feiyang, his murderous aura billowing out. The Beast Emperor shuddered. He looked at Wang Ming, then at Yang Li, then at King of Ghosts, then at the madman and Qin Feiyang. Wang Ming, Yang Li, Ghost King aside. Even the madman and Qin Feiyang were probably enough to make him die a tragic death. He also knew a thing or two about Qin Feiyang's character. If he didn't submit, he definitely wouldn't show any mercy. Was there really no other way? Who could help him? But the predicament he was currently in was that he couldn't cry for help. The Beast Emperor clenched his hands and looked at the murderous intent that gradually emerged on Qin Feiyang's face. In the end, he slowly lowered his head and sighed. I submit. Qin Feiyang smiled. The madman also smiled. Although the Beast Emperor had been severely injured, he was still one of their greatest threats. Now that the Beast Emperor had submitted, this threat was naturally gone. On the contrary, in the future, he would become a threat to the dragons. Qin Feiyang said, Then come out of this person's body. The Beast Emperor sighed. A fiery red divine light shot out from the top of his head. It was a fire qilin. This was the Beast Emperor's soul. Qin Feiyang formed a seal with both hands, and an enslavement seal appeared. Don't resist. Swish. With that, the enslavement seal swept toward the soul. Wang Ming, Yang Li, and Ghost King were all watching covetously from the side. How would the Beast Emperor dare resist? Very quickly, the enslavement seal controlled the Beast Emperor's soul. From now on, call me young master. Qin Feiyang looked at the Beast Emperor as he spoke, then looked at Wang Ming and the madman. And the two of you, don't call me young master either. The three of them looked at him suspiciously. Because now you are my subordinates. Your loyalty is to me, not to the Dragon Slayer Palace. Qin Feiyang said. Understood. Wang Ming and the madman nodded. Qin Feiyang looked at the Beast Emperor again. The Beast Emperor sighed helplessly and nodded. Got it. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and turned to Ghost King. Senior Ghost King, the Beast Emperor needs to reconstruct his body and soul. Can you let him go to the second level? Of course. Ghost King nodded. Thank you. Qin Feiyang smiled gratefully and looked at the Beast Emperor. The time array on the second level is 500 years per day. Cherish this opportunity. Yes. The Beast Emperor nodded, looking a little down. Don't look so reluctant. You'll benefit a lot if you follow me. Qin Feiyang glanced at the Beast Emperor indifferently, then nodded at Ghost King. With a wave of his hand, the Beast Emperor disappeared from the ancient city. Young Master, what about us? Yang Li and I followed you before Beast Venerable. You can't forget about us just because his cultivation is stronger than ours. Wang Ming and Yang Li looked at Qin Feiyang fawningly. Qin Feiyang laughed and said, Don't worry. You won't be left behind. Thank you, young master. The two of them bowed and thanked him. After all, Qin Feiyang possessed 10 heaven-defying divine artifacts such as the divine bow of the setting sun. He definitely wouldn't be able to use so many godly weapons by himself. What should they do then? Of course, they had to share them with his subordinates. For experts at their level, nothing in the world could catch their eyes, except for heaven-defying artifacts and heaven-defying techniques. Otherwise, they wouldn't have taken such a huge risk to come to hell. They just wanted to try their luck. Now that they followed Qin Feiyang, they would definitely have a chance to obtain a godly weapon in the future. At the thought of having a godly weapon of their own in the future, they couldn't help but feel excited. King Yu looked at Yang Li and Yang Li, then at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, Brother Qin, with the help of the Beast Emperor and Yang Li, you should have a better chance of defeating the dragons when you return to China. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and said, But we can't let our guard down. After all, the dragons still have the terrifying dragon god and a sovereign divine weapon. Sovereign divine weapon? The old man in blood-red clothes was shocked. King Yu looked at Qin Feiyang curiously and asked, Have you seen that sovereign divine weapon? No. But I have fought with it from a distance. Qin Feiyang said. How powerful is it? King Yu asked. Very powerful. Take the godly weapon for example. It couldn't resist at all. Qin Feiyang said in a low voice. So powerful? King Yu was shocked. I remember back then, I had more than a dozen godly weapons, but they couldn't even block a single sword light from the sovereign divine weapon. Qin Feiyang shook his head. The sovereign divine weapon is comparable to the sovereign divine weapon. Of course, the godly weapons can't be its match. The old man in blood-red clothes sneered. Qin Feiyang glanced at the old man and said, You know quite a lot. Of course. Back then, this old man was at least a peak undead realm expert. The old man in blood-red clothes smiled proudly. A real man doesn't boast about his past achievements. Haven't you heard of that? Besides, you're so powerful, but you still lost to the dragon god? Madman suddenly said with disdain. You, the old man in blood-red clothes' expression froze. Then he glared at Madman in anger. What? You want to possess me? You should just give up. Now, not only do you have the soul-anchoring divine pearl, but you also have the blood demon tower. Even if I stand here and let you possess me, you can't do it. Madman said with disdain. The old man in blood-red clothes was furious. Qin Feiyang said telepathically, Give Senior King Yu some face and stop talking. If it wasn't for King Yu, I would have used the blood demon tower to beat him up. He's only left with his divine soul, and he's still so arrogant. Madman thought to himself. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He looked at the old man in blood-red clothes and said, Now that the power of Fallen Valley has disappeared, can you leave? The old man in blood-red clothes was stunned. That's right. Since the power that shrouded Fallen Valley had disappeared, then he could leave Fallen Valley too, right? If Qin Feiyang hadn't reminded him, he wouldn't have realized it. Whoosh. After coming back to his senses, The old man in blood-red clothes turned into a stream of light and flew out of Fallen Valley. King Yu looked at his father's back and then at Qin Feiyang and Madman. He smiled and said, "Thank you." This was because he knew that Qin Feiyang and Madman were giving him face and didn't argue with his father. "Why are you thanking me when we're friends? Besides, if it wasn't for Senior's help, how could we have broken through to the initial stage so quickly?" Qin Feiyang said with a smile. "If you really want to thank us, then just give us the ancient city of Qingyu." Madman grinned. Qin Feiyang was stunned. The Ghost King also looked at the madman with a stunned expression. Chapter 2700. What's with such a big reaction? I'm just joking. Frenzy looked at the two of them speechlessly. Qingyu shook his head and smiled. Qingyu Ancient City is the capital of my blood demon race. It's very important to my blood demon race. It's impossible for this king to give it to anyone, but, speaking of this, Qingyu fell silent as he lowered his head and fell into deep thought. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang and Frenzy looked at him suspiciously. Qingyu waved his hand and a sealed iron box appeared. He smiled and said, "I can give this to you." This is Frenzy's eyes lit up, because this iron box was the one he saw on the second floor of the palace. At that time, White-Eyed Wolf wanted it very much, because Qingyu had personally said that there was a heaven-defying artifact inside. Yi Zhong and the various ancestral dragons had paid a huge price to snatch this iron box. But now, Qingyu was going to give it to them for free. If the various ancestral dragons knew about this, wouldn't they vomit blood from anger? Anyway, this thing is useless in hell, so I might as well give it to you. When the time comes to fight with the dragons, it can also help you. Qingyu smiled. A heaven-defying artifact was like a worthless toy, casually giving it away. Qin Feiyang and Frenzy didn't stand on ceremony. They took the iron box and thanked him before keeping it. If they wanted to defeat the dragons, they indeed needed to strengthen their own strength. And a heaven-defying artifact was undoubtedly the fastest and most efficient way. As for the time array, Qingyu pondered for a while and turned to look into the distance. Seeing that the blood-red clothed old man hadn't returned yet, he said in a low voice, "Actually, the Blood Demon Tower also has a time array." And Qin Feiyang was surprised. Frenzy nodded and said, "The Blood Demon Tower does have a time array." "How do you know?" Qin Feiyang looked at him suspiciously. "Nonsense. The 10th floor of the Blood Demon Tower was in my hands before. Of course I know. It's just that in the past, this time array only lasted for a day to half a year," Frenzy said. 1 day and half a year? Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. He shook his head and said, "It's really nothing. That's because the 10th floor of the Blood Demon Tower has been separated, and the effect has been greatly reduced. According to this king's knowledge, the time array of the Blood Demon Tower in its complete state is 2,000 years per day." Yuang said, "What the hell? 2,000 years in 1 day?" Qin Feiyang and Qin Haodong were dumbfounded. It was actually 4 times faster than the ancient city's time array. If he cultivated in the Blood Demon Tower in the future, wouldn't he be able to break through a small realm in 2 or 3 months? Qin Feiyang turned to look at Madman and said with a smile, "Senior brother Madman, please take care of me in the past. If you're envious, just say it. Don't hide it." Madman grimaced. This was truly an unexpected surprise. "Don't be happy too early. The Blood Demon race isn't in its complete state yet." Qingyu looked at Madman and said, "Incomplete?" Madman looked at Qingyu in a daze. Qin Feiyang also had a look of surprise. Didn't the 10th level already fuse with the Blood Demon Tower? Why wasn't it complete? There are some things that this king can't say. You guys need to slowly discover them yourself," Qingyu said mysteriously. "Aren't you keeping us in suspense? Just tell us directly," Madman said. Qingyu shook his head and said, "Although it's incomplete, the time array of the current Blood Demon race should also be 500 years per day." "The difference is so big?" Madman was stunned. "Because we still need 2 more things to complete the Blood Demon Tower." Qingyu nodded. "Can't I beg you? Tell me, what are we missing?" "Where are these 2 things now? I'll go and snatch them now." Madman's current mood was like ants on a hot pan. It was very uncomfortable. 2,000 years per day, 500 years per day. The difference between the two was simply too big. Moreover, no matter who it was, they would definitely choose the time array that was 2,000 years per day. King Yu hesitated for a moment and said in a low voice, I can't say much. I can only tell you that it's far away but also right in front of you. What the hell? Madman was stunned. Far away but also right in front of you. You must be kidding me. Qin Feiyang was also quite surprised by King Yu's answer. Far away. The horizon was endless. Who knew what was there? Right in front of you? This sentence was even more incomprehensible. Because there was only Madman, King Yu, and himself in front of him. King Yu's act of keeping them in suspense was really unfathomable. Madman also gave up. King Yu clearly did not want to say. It was useless to force him. Whoosh. Soon. The blood-red old man returned. Father, how is it? King Yu looked at the blood-red old man and asked nervously. I can leave the fallen valley. The blood-red old man nodded and said excitedly, I'm finally free. Hearing this, King Yu was also wild with joy. Don't be happy too early. Be careful. When the dragon god descends one day, he will suppress you again. Madman suddenly poured a bucket of cold water on him. You, the blood-red old man glared at Madman. Was this what they meant by nothing good comes out of a dog's mouth? Humph. Madman snorted coldly. Actually, he could not be blamed for being petty. He had been possessed twice consecutively. No one would be able to take this lying down. It was already merciful that he did not kill the blood-red old man. Father, brother Madman. We're all friends. Don't say too much. Don't hurt our friendship. King Yu looked at the two of them helplessly. Friends? Is he worthy? The blood-red old man sneered. I'm not worthy, but I don't care to be friends with you. Madman also had a look of disdain. Who are you calling an old thing? The blood-red old man gnashed his teeth. You. So what? Madman had a provocative look on his face. The blood-red old man stared at Madman gloomily. It was as if he could not wait to skin Madman alive. Lousy likes to see your angry yet helpless look. The corners of Madman's lips curled up. Fine, fine, fine. This old man admits defeat. But don't be complacent too early. The battle between you and the dragons will erupt sooner or later. I hope you can still be as arrogant as you are now. The blood-red old man sneered coldly. You don't have to worry about that. You'd better think about how to deal with the dragon god's next suppression. This time, it's because of us that you can regain your freedom. What about next time? Let's see who can help you. Madman said indifferently. The blood-red old man said angrily. Don't flatter yourself. What does it have to do with you? Brother, look. Ungrateful, burning the bridge after crossing the river. That's exactly what people like him are like. Madman looked at Qin Feiyang and said. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. King Yu also had a helpless expression. It was all in the past. What was there to fuss about? It was the same for both the old and the young. There was no end to it. Headache. King Yu said. Brother Qin, why don't we go look for it too? Look for what? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Of course it's to look for treasures. King Yu dragged Qin Feiyang and left, leaving Madman and the blood-red old man staring at each other. Senior King Yu, aren't you afraid that they will fight if we leave just like that? Qin Feiyang looked at King Yu in a daze. That's why I'm giving them the chance to fight to their heart's content and vent their frustrations. King Yu shook his head. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh. Junior King Yu, I remember you said that there were no rules in the Nether King Hell in the past? Yes. It's the rules and restrictions set by the dragon god after my father was suppressed. All the creatures in the Nether King Hell can't break through to the imperishable realm. King Yu nodded. Then, did you have a mark on your body in the past? Could you summon the power of the evil sun and evil moon? Qin Feiyang asked. We blood demons have always had a mark, and it's innate. With the mark, we can naturally summon the power of the evil sun and evil moon. But the beasts in the Nether King Hell didn't have a mark on them in the past. King Yu said. That's strange. The mark of the blood demons is completely different from the mark of the beasts. You were born with the mark. The mark of the beasts appeared because of the rules and restrictions. In the end, you should have a mark that's exactly the same as the beasts. Because of this, your cultivation base can be limited. Qin Feiyang frowned. I'm not sure about that. Anyway, since the rules and restrictions appeared, none of us blood demons can step into the imperishable realm. For example, I've been trapped in the peak 9 heavens realm for 50,000 to 60,000 years. If I could break through, I would have broken through with the help of the time array, King Yu said. King Yu said, that's true. Qin Feiyang nodded. 50,000 to 60,000 years, plus the time array of 500 years per day, that would be 10 billion years. 10 billion years. Even a person with average aptitude could break through to the imperishable realm as long as he had such a long lifespan. I've already given up. King Yu waved his hand. Give up, Qin Feiyang muttered. If it were him, he would probably give up too. After all, anyone would feel despair in the face of such a curse. After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyang stopped in his tracks, looked at King Yu and said, Senior, to tell you the truth, I'm very concerned about something. What is it? King Yu turned his head and looked at him suspiciously. Do you still remember what the dragon god said to me not long ago? He said that I shouldn't interfere in the matters of the blood demons. He also said that I shouldn't regret it in the future, and that I should take care of myself. What did he mean by that? Qin Feiyang frowned. He had a feeling that the dragon god was hinting at something. King Yu recalled carefully. The dragon god did seem to have said these words. But he didn't understand. Regarding this, I'm afraid you can only ask the dragon god. But don't worry, I will never harm you. If you don't believe me, I can even swear on my life, King Yu said. No need, no need. Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hands and said with a smile, I still believe in Senior King Yu's character, but, at this point Qin Feiyang paused, looking a little hesitant. King Yu sized up Qin Feiyang for a while and asked, Are you talking about my father? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded, looked up at King Yu and said, Senior, don't be angry. To be honest, I don't really trust your father. Chapter 2701. Indeed, King Yu's heart skipped a beat. He knew that his father's actions had already caused Qin Feiyang's disgust. King Yu took a deep breath and nodded. That's understandable. Thank you, Qin Feiyang said. King Yu continued, frankly speaking, even I am not used to it. Qin Feiyang was surprised. Father used to be kind and reasonable, but why has he become so unreasonable now? I really don't know what he went through during the battle with the dragon god that made him become like this. King Yu sighed. Kind and reasonable? Reasonable? Qin Feiyang was stunned. These words seemed to have nothing to do with the blood-red old man. Little scoundrel, you're really asking for a beating. Do you think I'm afraid of you? At this moment, 2 angry roars could be heard. Immediately after, a wave of battle energy could be felt. Qin Feiyang and King Yu looked up and smiled bitterly. Sure enough, the old man and the young man were still fighting. Perhaps it's because he's been suppressed for so many years that his personality has changed greatly. Qin Feiyang mumbled and looked at King Yu. There's another question. King Yu was suspicious. When we were in the valley, your father said that we won't be able to kill all the blood puppets in Fallen Valley, even if we were given 1,000 years. I'm thinking, is he exaggerating or is this true? Qin Feiyang frowned. Is this very important? King Yu asked. I'm thinking, if we can't kill all of them in 1,000 years, then there must be so many blood puppets that the entire Fallen Valley can't contain them. It's fine if he's exaggerating. But if it's true, then where are these blood puppets? Why are there so many blood puppets? Senior, you should know that Fallen Valley is the biggest forbidden area in the Hell of the Nether King. People like you from the blood demon race won't enter. The ferocious beasts in the Hell of the Nether King must be the same. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be so many blood puppets. Qin Feiyang said. How about this? When I have time, I'll ask my father and then tell you. Yu Wang said. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then let's go. Who knows, we might be lucky and obtain quite a few heaven-defying divine objects this time. Yu Wang said with a smile. Actually, I'm already very satisfied, but if there's more, that would be even better. Qin Feiyang smiled. Including the metal box that King Yu had given him, he now had 3 sealed metal boxes on him. In other words, 3 heaven-defying divine artifacts. Including the Blood Demon Tower, this trip to the Nether King's Hell with the madman was equivalent to obtaining 4 heaven-defying divine artifacts. Even the dragons had never had such a harvest before. After all, the Sunset Godly Bow was one of the 10 great godly artifacts that the dragons had obtained after entering it several times. The most important thing was, he had also subdued Beast Emperor, Wang Ming and Yang Li. 1 emperor and 2 divine emperors. What could be more valuable than this? Furthermore, he had also drawn up a plan to deal with Yi Zhong. So even if they left the Nether King's Hell now, they would still be returning home with a full harvest. Time flew by. In the evening, after an entire day of searching, the entire Fallen Valley was almost turned upside down. Qin Feiyang and Yu Wang had also gained a lot. More than 100 supreme-level divine artifacts. More than 80 supreme-level divine arts. There were about 5,000 to 6,000 legendary and peak divine arts and divine artifacts in total. Although they didn't find any heaven-defying divine objects, these divine arts and divine artifacts would definitely cause a bloodbath in the divine prefecture. After all, even in the divine prefecture, supreme-level divine arts and divine artifacts were rare. Boom. Crack. When Qin Feiyang, Yu Wang, and the 10 great commanders returned to the central area of the Fallen Valley, where the Blood Demon Tower was originally located, they found that the madman and the blood-red-clothed old man were still fighting. The madman was already in a sorry state with bruises all over his face. Although the blood-red-clothed old man was in soul form and didn't have any physical injuries, his soul body was much weaker than before. Obviously, he didn't gain any advantage either. Of course, this was also thanks to the restrictions of the Nether King's Hell. If there weren't any restrictions, the blood-red-clothed old man's divine sense would be enough to kill the madman with his perfected imperishable realm cultivation. Little bastard, today we will fight to the death. I'll accompany you to the end. Even when Qin Feiyang and the others returned, the two didn't seem to have any intention of stopping. Lord Yu Wang, what should we do? The 10 great commanders looked at the two in a daze. Don't worry about them. Let them fight to their heart's content. Yu Wang waved his hand, a little annoyed. The 10 great commanders looked at each other helplessly. The blood-red-clothed old man was Yu Wang's father, and the leader of the previous generation of blood demons, so they naturally didn't dare to reprimand him. As for the madman, after being together for so long, they knew him very well. If they went to persuade him, they might be beaten up instead. So, it was better not to meddle in other people's business. How's the harvest? Yu Wang looked at the 10 great commanders and asked. To be honest, this is the first time we've seen so many divine objects. With that, the 10 great commanders took out the divine objects they had plundered for the entire day. Right away, divine artifacts and jade slips were piled up in front of Qin Feiyang and Yu Wang like a small mountain. So many? Even Yu Wang couldn't help but be dumbfounded at this moment. There were at least 30,000 to 40,000 divine artifacts and jade slips. Among them, the most eye-catching ones were the 3 iron boxes. Among the 3 iron boxes, 2 of them were more than a meter long and 1 foot wide, completely black. The other iron box was only the size of an adult's palm. And these 3 iron boxes all had the aura of a seal. Obviously, these were 2 heaven-defying divine artifacts and a heaven-defying divine art. There are 3 more. Qin Feiyang stared at the 3 iron boxes, clenching his fists. The excitement in his heart was indescribable. Yu Wang smiled and said, "Brother Qin, these are all yours." What? Qin Feiyang was stunned. The 10 great commanders also looked at Yu Wang in shock. In fact, they had already expected that Yu Wang would definitely give some to Qin Feiyang, but they didn't expect that he would give all of them to Qin Feiyang. Are you stupid? At this moment, the blood-red old man roared, threw Madman aside, and flew over shouting, giving all of them to him. How generous are you? I've never seen such a wastrel like you. It's none of your business. The current blood demon race is ruled by the Ghost King. Why are you interrupting, old thing? Get lost as far as you can. Madman also flew over. The blood-red old man said angrily, Get lost, I'm not in the mood to mess with you now. I'm not in the mood to mess with you either. Madman touched his red and swollen nose, grimacing in pain. Father, our blood demon tribe doesn't lack supreme and legendary divine arts and divine artifacts. And heaven-defying divine artifacts are even more useless. So there's no point in us keeping these things. Why don't we give them to Brother Qin and the others? When the time comes to deal with the dragons, our chances of winning will be higher. Yu Wang said patiently. No. Even if we keep them as firewood, we can't let outsiders have them. The blood-red old man shook his head, his attitude very firm. Old patriarch, your thoughts are like standing in a latrine pit. Madman grumbled. Shut up, who are you to speak? The blood-red old man immediately frowned. Madman shrunk his neck and didn't dare to speak anymore. Yu Wang said, Father, what if I insist on giving them to Brother Qin and the others? Then we'll sever our relationship as father and son. The blood-red old man shouted. Okay. Yu Wang was instantly enraged. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, You don't have to be polite, take them all. Qin Feiyang was a little hesitant. He couldn't really watch them sever their relationship as father and son, right? It's fine. Right now, I'm in charge of the blood demon tribe. Yu Wang said. You want to rebel? The blood-red old man was furious. Yes, I want to rebel. Do you still remember the situation when you were possessed by lunatic in the blood demon tower? At that time, I said that if you wanted to possess him, I would self-destruct in front of you. But how did you answer me? If you want to self-destruct, then so be it. I'll pretend that I don't have a son like you. Do you know how sad this sentence made me? And now you actually said that you want to sever our relationship as father and son? Is this something you as a father should say? I'm no longer that child. I'm the current patriarch of the blood demon tribe. I have a temper too. Even if it's you, you still have to listen to me, the clan chief. Besides, why do you think I'm doing this? It's all for you. You possessed lunatic twice and almost shattered Brother Qin's divine soul. If it weren't for me, do you think lunatic and Brother Qin would let you go? I'm thanking them for not killing you. Do you understand? Yu Wang said angrily. These words could be said to be true disobedience. However, the blood-red old man fell silent unexpectedly. Looking at Yu Wang, his eyes seemed to have changed. Do as you wish. After a long time, the blood-red old man shook his head and sighed. He seemed to be exhausted. Yes. From the time they met until now, he had still treated Yu Wang as a child. It was natural for a child to listen to his father. But when he heard the Ghost King's words, he was suddenly enlightened. This child had grown up, and he was already the new leader of the blood demon tribe. Now he had his own opinions and an inviolable dignity. Times were changing. People would also change with it. For the current blood demon tribe, he, the former leader, no longer had much to do with it. Brother Qin, accept it. If you don't, I'll really fall out with you. Yu Wang said with a straight face. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. He bowed and said, Thank you, senior. To be honest, he really wanted these deity techniques and deity artifacts. Because these deity artifacts could not only strengthen the people around him, such as Zhao Tailai, Willow Tree, Yu Wang, and other beasts, but they could also raise the overall strength of the Black Tortoise world by a few levels. After Qin Feiyang kept all the deity artifacts, the madman smiled proudly. He looked at the blood-red old man and comforted him. Old thing, it's the world of the young now. Why are you an old man so worried? You should just enjoy your old age. What do you mean? Are you cursing me? The blood-red old man glared. Curse? You can't randomly draw hatred for me. What if the Ghost King believes me and thinks that I'm cursing you? What if he wants my life? I'm doing this for your own good. It wasn't easy for you to regain your freedom. Don't mess around. The madman said. Thank you for your concern. The blood-red old man gritted his teeth. No need to thank me. As a junior, it's natural for me to care about a senior like you. The madman chuckled. The blood-red old man's mouth twitched. Looking at the madman's proud face, he really wanted to slap him. Chapter 2702. Seeing that the two of them were about to fight again, Qin Feiyang quickly coughed and looked at King Yu. Senior King Yu, since the matter is over, let's go back. Okay. King Yu also understood what Qin Feiyang meant. He glanced at Fallen Valley and shouted, let's go. Whoosh! At that moment, the group rose into the sky and disappeared into the horizon at lightning speed. Seeing this, Frenzy and the blood-red clothed old man snorted at each other at the same time. They also rose into the sky and chased after the group. The return journey was very smooth. After all, with King Yu and the 10 commanders around, who would dare to block the way? King Yu, Commander Brother Qin, you're back. When Qin Feiyang and the group landed on the plains, the bloodboat and unicorn sitting cross-legged on the plains immediately got up to welcome them. Yes. King Yu nodded and took out the ancient city. As King Yu waved his hand, the ancient city immediately expanded and landed on the ground with a bang. Bloodboat, did anything happen here during this period of time? Shweta asked. No. Many humans came here, but they immediately fled when they saw me and the unicorn. Bloodboat said. King Yu asked. What about the clansmen who went to collect the blood? Bloodboat smiled and said. They definitely won't be back so soon. Yes. King Yu nodded. Yes. Suddenly, Bloodboat noticed the blood-red clothed old man, and there was a trace of surprise in his eyes. It seems that even after so many years, many clansmen still remember me. The blood-red clothed old man said proudly. You are. Bloodboat was extremely surprised. Was this an illusion? Shweta coughed dryly and said, he's our old clan leader. It's really the old clan leader. Bloodboat trembled and immediately knelt in the void, saying respectfully, greetings, old clan leader. Get up. The blood-red clothed old man raised his hand. Bloodboat rose and said in surprise, King Yu, what's going on? Didn't the old clan leader already? It's a long story. You can ask the clansmen later. King Yu said. Yes. Bloodboat nodded. Brother Qin, let's go. King Yu smiled. The group of people entered the ancient city and flew straight towards the palace. The ancient city of King Yu was still the same as before. There were no changes. Inside the palace. Father, go to the second level to reconstruct your body, King Yu said as he looked at the blood-red clothed old man. He was afraid that Madman and his father would fight again. Now was not the same as in Fallen Valley. In the Fallen Valley, the ancient city of the Ghost King was first in the hands of Qin Feiyang, and then in the hands of the Ghost King. Hence, no matter how the two of them fought, they would not implicate the people in the ancient city. But now, the ancient city of King Yu was located here. If they were to fight again, the people in the city would definitely be implicated. As the patriarch of the blood demon race, he would not allow such a thing to happen. There's no hurry. I haven't been back for a long time. This old man will go for a stroll in the city first. Then he turned around and walked out of the hall. King Yu exhaled. As long as Madman wasn't with his father, everything was fine. Following closely, King Yu then looked at the 10 commanders and smilingly said, You all should also go and have a good rest. All right. The 10 commanders nodded and turned to walk out of the hall one after another. In this way, only Qin Feiyang, Madman, Wang Ming, Yangli, and King Yu were left in the hall. Brother Qin, Brother Madman, the matter in Fallen Valley has been settled. You have also obtained many legendary items. There should be nothing else now, right? King Yu asked with a smile. Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other and smiled. I don't think so. Then you all will stay in the ancient city of the Ghost King to cultivate. When the Hell of the Ghost King closes, head directly to the Godfiend Square. King Yu said. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded. He could take the opportunity to break through to the 9 Heavens' Great Perfection realm. Wait. Madman suddenly thought of something and looked at King Yu. Before coming to the Hell of the Ghost King, I heard from the dragons that there seems to be an inheritance of the power of laws here? An inheritance of the power of laws. King Yu was stunned. Yes, this is the news released by the dragons. I believe that many hidden experts came to the Hell of the Ghost King because of this news. Madman said. King Yu said, I know a little about the inheritance of the power of laws. Really? Madman was surprised. Qin Feiyang was also tempted. Needless to say, Wang Ming and Madman, they had always yearned for the power of laws. It's not an inheritance either. To be precise, it's a test. King Yu said. A test? The four of them looked at each other, their eyes full of doubts. Yes. But this test is very scary. If you fail, you will die. But if you succeed and have good comprehension, you will be able to comprehend the power of laws immediately. If your comprehension is poor, as long as you pass the test, there is a certain chance that you will be able to comprehend the power of laws in the future. Big Shui also comprehended the law of massacre through this test. King Yu said. Wang Ming frowned. In other words, this test can only succeed and not fail? That's right. Once you fail, even the gods won't be able to save you. King Yu nodded. Yongli said. Isn't this equivalent to gambling with one's life? It is gambling with one's life to begin with. After all, the power of laws is an existence that surpasses all other powers. Every living being wants to possess it. But how many living beings have comprehended the power of laws? So, if you want to obtain the power of laws, you have to take risks. There's no such thing as a free lunch in this world, right? King Yu smiled faintly. That's true. Wang Ming and Yongli nodded. Qin Feiyang asked, where is this place then? The forest of gods and demons. King Yu said. The forest of gods and demons? Qin Feiyang and the other three were stunned. Wasn't this where the exit to hell was? You must be surprised. King Yu said with a smile. The four of them nodded. It was not a surprise, but rather a surprise. The forest of gods and demons has a long history. It is said that the forest of gods and demons has always existed since the creation of hell. Furthermore, just like its name, the forest of gods and demons is a place filled with danger. You can say that. The forest of gods and demons is countless times more dangerous than Fallen Valley. King Yu said in a deep voice. Countless times? The four of them were stunned. Frenzy frowned and said, then why do you say that Fallen Valley is the biggest forbidden area in hell? The reason why we say that Fallen Valley is the biggest forbidden area is because of the evil force in Fallen Valley. This evil force prevents us from entering and taking a look. Therefore, we didn't know how dangerous Fallen Valley was before. After entering this time, I realized that it's actually not that big of a deal. King Yu said. So that's the case. The four of them were enlightened. For an unknown place, it was natural to list it as the most dangerous place. Qin Feiyang looked at King Yu and asked, have you been to the forest of gods and demons? Of course. The forest of gods and demons is thousands of times bigger than Fallen Valley. Even I would need a year to traverse the entire forest of gods and demons. However, there is a safe route in the forest of gods and demons. Through this route, one can easily pass through the forest of gods and demons and reach the square of gods and demons. In the past, the dragons used this safe route to pass through the forest of gods and demons and reach the square of gods and demons. King Yu explained. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. But once you leave this route, you have to be prepared to die, because other than this safe route, every other place is filled with danger. I remember when Shweta entered the forest of gods and demons. It took him more than 1,000 years to come out alive. When I walked out, I looked like I was scared out of my wits. It took me a while to recover. From then on, whenever he heard about the forest of gods and demons, his face would be filled with fear. Obviously, those 1,000 years in the forest of gods and demons left an indelible shadow in his heart. Shui Er and the others wanted to go, but seeing Shweta like this, they couldn't help but feel a little guilty and didn't dare to make a decision. King Yu shook his head and smiled. The four of them looked at each other. Qin Feiyang and Frenzy had some understanding of Shweda's character. He was strong and courageous. However, they didn't expect that even such a person would be so afraid of the forest of gods and demons. It seemed that the forest of gods and demons really couldn't be taken lightly. Qin Feiyang, why don't the two of us not take the risk? After all, we have already mastered the power of laws. There's no need to risk our lives for the power of laws. As for Wang Ming and Yang Li, it's such a good opportunity, We can give it a try. Frenzy chuckled and said. The corners of Wang Ming and Yang Li's lips twitched. It sounded nice, but in fact, it was for them to explore the path first. The two of you have the power of laws, there's no need for you to take the risk. Because one power of law is enough for you to benefit endlessly. Moreover, you have to use your heart to comprehend each power of law thoroughly. If you have mastered 2 or 3 powers of laws at the same time, you naturally need more time to comprehend them. This will slow down your progress. King Yu said. He knew that the two of them had the power of laws. Because he was in the ancient city of King Yu when Frenzy and the chief pavilion master fought, he heard everyone's conversation. At that time, he was also very shocked. One of them had comprehended the law of light at the paramount god level, and the other had comprehended the law of slaughter at the godlord level. Such abnormal humans. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes and heard it with his own ears, he wouldn't have believed it even if he was beaten to death. But in the face of Frenzy and King Yu's persuasion, Qin Feiyang didn't answer immediately. He lowered his head and remained silent. Although what the Ghost King said was also true, that one more type of nomological power would require more time to comprehend, it should also be known that one more type of nomological power was equivalent to having one more trump card. Because at the imperishable stage, it was basically a collision of the power of laws. Without the power of laws, even if you were at the perfected imperishable stage, you would only be an ordinary imperishable stage. It was the same principle as martial artists and mortals. If an imperishable stage with the power of laws was a powerful martial artist, then an imperishable stage without the power of laws was a weak mortal. The two were on completely different levels. Moreover, he had a feeling that the power of laws would be the key to defeating Ice Dragon and Small Beast in the future. Chapter 2703. Seems like we can't persuade him. Lunatic shook his head. Looking at Qin Feiyang's expression, he knew what Qin Feiyang was thinking. Qin Feiyang glanced at Lunatic, then turned to Wang Ming and Lunatic, asking, "Do you want to go?" Of course. Both of them nodded, but they were a little hesitant. Danger and fortune exist side by side. If you can comprehend the power of laws, I can consider giving you a heaven-defying divine weapon. Qin Feiyang said. Really? Both of them looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Qin Feiyang said, in the hands of a powerful person, the heaven-defying divine weapon can unleash its greatest power. All right, let's give it a try. Both of them looked at each other and nodded at Qin Feiyang. That's right. Danger and fortune exist side by side. There was no free lunch in the world. If one didn't work hard, how could one become stronger? Humans couldn't always stay in the same place. If one didn't improve, one would slowly be eliminated. Survival of the fittest. This was the logic. I'll go into seclusion first. When I break through to the 9 heavens realm, I'll set off for the forest of gods and demons. Both of you should adjust your state during this period of time. But remember, you're not allowed to create trouble in the ancient city. Qin Feiyang instructed. Yes. Both of them bowed and replied. Qin Feiyang said, Senior King Yu, send Senior Brother Lunatic and me to the 2nd floor. Okay. King Yu nodded and sent both of them to the 2nd floor. Then he looked at Wang Ming and Lunatic and smiled. Do as you wish. Thank you. Wang Ming and Lunatic cupped their fists and thanked him. Then, they turned and walked out of the palace, looking at the ancient city in surprise. They had never thought that one day, they would actually be able to enter the ancient city openly. To be honest, it was considered an honor for humans to enter the ancient city. After all, the ancient city was the capital of the blood demon race. Even dragons didn't dare to step in. The 2nd floor. The white-eyed wolf had been in seclusion all this time. Furthermore, judging from its aura, it was about to break through to the 9th heaven realm. The Beast Emperor's consciousness was also lying on the ground, silently reconstructing his physical body. Are you satisfied now? Madman glanced at the white-eyed wolf and the Beast Emperor before turning to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang looked at him suspiciously. Playing dumb? The divine weapons and divine incantations you got from Fallen Valley should be enough for you to use for the rest of your life. Madman said. Oh, this Qin Feiyang smiled in realization and said, "This is all thanks to Senior Yu King. If it weren't for his generosity, how could we have obtained so much?" "Wrong. I have to thank that old thing." Madman waved his hand. "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang looked at him suspiciously. "Think about it. If it weren't for that old thing who tried to kill us time and time again, would Yu King feel guilty? It's because Yu King felt guilty that he gave us all the divine incantations and divine weapons as compensation. So if we don't thank him, who should we thank?" Madman smiled slyly. "Haha," Qin Feiyang laughed. Hearing what Madman said, it seemed to be the case. "Come, let's sort it out and see how much we got." After Madman finished speaking, he took out the divine weapons and divine incantations from his universe ring. These divine incantations and divine weapons were obtained from Fallen Valley. Madman said that he was keeping them, but in fact, he was possessing them. Even if the ancestral dragons didn't leave, it was impossible for them to take anything from Madman. Seeing this, Qin Feiyang also took out all his gains. Then the two squatted on the ground and sorted it out. After working for almost half a day, the two finally finished. In front of them, there were a total of 4 piles. One of the piles was 6 iron boxes, all of which had the aura of a seal. That's right. These were the 6 divine incantations. They got one in the Blood Lake, Yu King gave them one, and then they got another one in Fallen Valley. Later, when they searched Fallen Valley, they found 2 more divine incantations and 1 divine incantation. In other words, including the Blood Demon Tower, they got a total of 7 divine incantations. If only the young man gave us the divine incantation that he took. Madman shook his head. This way, they would get a total of 8 divine incantations. But unfortunately, it was only a dream. If the young man didn't take the initiative to give it to them, they wouldn't dare to snatch it. After all, the young man was an existence that suppressed the ancestral dragons with his own strength. But overall, the opening of hell this time was more than the previous few times. Because the previous few times, the dragons only got the Sunset Divine Bow and other divine weapons, as well as the divine incantation of the Dragon's Prince. And the remaining 3 piles. 1 pile was Supreme Divine Weapons and Divine Incantations. 1 pile was Legendary Divine Weapons and Divine Incantations. The other pile was Pinnacle Divine Weapons and Divine Incantations. As for Perfect Divine Incantations and Supreme Divine Weapons, there were only a dozen of them. Supreme Divine Weapons and Divine Incantations, a total of 3,600. Legendary Divine Weapons and Divine Incantations, a total of 18,000. Pinnacle Divine Weapons and Divine Incantations, a total of 22,000. Not counting the Perfect Divine Incantations and Supreme Divine Weapons. 3,600 plus 18,000 plus 22,000. In other words, this time in Fallen Valley, we got a total of 43,600 divine incantations. Madman laughed. Amazing. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but be shocked when he heard this number. Take the Supreme Divine Weapons and Divine Incantations for example. Even in the Dragon God Palace, one would need to have incredible luck to get them from the Divine Weapon Pavilion and Divine Incantation Treasury. And now, they had a total of 3,600 divine incantations in their hands. It was simply getting rich overnight. If this were to spread when they returned to the Divine Land, wouldn't everyone go crazy? I don't want these divine incantations, but we'll split the rest. You don't have any objections, right? Madman looked at Qin Feiyang and said. Of course not. Qin Feiyang smiled. If he still had any objections, then he wasn't worthy of being a human. Okay, you keep it for now. When we return to the Divine Land, you can give it to me. Madman said. Qin Feiyang nodded, waved his hand, and put away all the divine incantations. Next, the two took out their soul stones and began to cultivate. To break through to the greater success Ninth Heaven Realm, they needed to refine 400 billion soul stones. With their current speed of refining soul stones, it would take at least 290,000 years to refine 400 billion soul stones. Fortunately, there was a time array here. 1 day was 500 years, 10 days was 5,000 years, 100 days was 50,000 years, 600 days was 300,000 years. In other words, the two of them only needed more than a year to break through to the greater success ninth heaven realm. Madman suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Qin Fei Yang. Tell me, how can we upgrade the supreme divine incantations to the level of divine incantations? Qin Fei Yang was taken aback, shook his head and said, I don't know. In fact, he had also thought about this problem. Because now, almost all of his divine incantations had been upgraded to the supreme divine incantations. He was only one step away from the divine incantations. But it was this one step that he couldn't cross. If we want to become stronger, then we must upgrade these divine incantations to the level of divine incantations. Madman said. Qin Fei Yang nodded, pondered for a while, and asked, do you think this divine incantation is the same as the divine incantations, related to the power of law? Related to the power of law? Madman was stunned. We all know about the supreme divine incantations. As long as you give it the power of law, it can be upgraded to a divine incantation. Then does this supreme divine incantation also have to be given the power of law? Qin Fei Yang said. This question. Madman pondered for a while and shook his head. It's hard to say, we have to ask an old senior. Old senior. Qin Fei Yang murmured and suddenly glanced at the Beast Emperor beside him. Madman also looked at the Beast Emperor. The Beast Emperor was at the great success imperishable realm, so he should know about this. Cough cough. Madman coughed and chuckled. Senior Beast Emperor. Senior? The Beast Emperor opened his eyes and looked suspiciously at Madman. Did this kid have a fever? He actually called him senior for the first time. After being together for so long, this was the first time he saw this little madman be so polite to him. Does the upgrade of a supreme divine incantation to a divine incantation have anything to do with the power of law? Madman said. So you have something to ask. The Beast Emperor suddenly understood. No wonder he was so polite, he thought he had changed. The upgrade of a supreme divine incantation to a divine incantation has to do with the power of law. The Beast Emperor pondered for a moment and said, Tell me quickly. Madman urged. Actually, it's similar to a divine incantation. By integrating the profound of the power of law into the divine incantation, the supreme divine incantation can naturally evolve into a divine incantation. Take young Master's slaughter domain as an example. According to my personal speculation, it should be integrated with the profound of the law of slaughter. The Beast Emperor said. The profound of the law of slaughter? Qin Fei Yang was stunned. Of course. To reach the slaughter domain level, one must have the profound of the law of slaughter. Madman, although your law of slaughter has reached the initial stage, compared to the profound of the law of slaughter, it's still thousands of miles away. The Beast Emperor said. Profound of the law of slaughter. Madman muttered. That sounded like something very impressive. Madman turned his head to look at Qin Fei Yang, and frowned. Where did you get this slaughter formula from? It's so heaven-defying? It's innate, don't be envious. Qin Fei Yang smiled. Nonsense. Madman pouted. Look. I'm telling you the truth, and you still don't believe me? I'm really not talking nonsense. I heard from my parents that this ancient castle came with me, and the slaughter formula is inside this ancient castle. If this isn't innate, then what is it? Qin Fei Yang said. It can't be. Madman frowned. A heaven-defying divine incantation and a divine incantation came with each other? Wasn't this too unfathomable? If that was true, then wouldn't it mean that Qin Fei Yang was different from everyone else since birth? The Beast Emperor took a deep look at Qin Fei Yang and said, This emperor has heard of such a situation. Huh? When Madman and Qin Fei Yang heard this, they couldn't help but look at the Beast Emperor. The Beast Emperor looked at the two of them and said with a faint smile, Of course, this is just a legend. You guys can just listen to it and don't take it seriously. Chapter 2704. It's fine. Go ahead. The madman said. Usually such a situation would be the reincarnation of a peerless figure. The Beast Emperor said. Reincarnated. Qin Feiyang and the madman looked at each other. That's right. It's said that some great figures will enter the cycle of reincarnation after they die. It's also known as reincarnation. And after reincarnation, the most important and closest companions of the previous life, for example, divine weapons and techniques, or even mounts, loved ones, they'll find the reincarnated body in another way and silently guard it. They'll directly awaken the reincarnated body and recover the memories of their previous life. The Beast Emperor said. There's such a thing? I thought that reincarnation was just a legend. The madman muttered. The Beast Emperor said. I've said it earlier. It's just a legend. Don't listen to it. But hearing you say that, I don't think it's a legend. It's more like it's real. The madman turned to look at Qin Feiyang. Otherwise, how could he deal with the ancient castle and the kill formula that came with it? Is it real? The Beast Emperor could not help but look at Qin Feiyang. His heart was shaken. This was because Qin Feiyang's situation was too similar to the legends. The madman suddenly seemed to have thought of something and said firmly, I'm sure this guy is the reincarnation of a mighty figure. Qin Feiyang and the Beast Emperor looked at him suspiciously. Do you want to know why? The madman asked. Nonsense. Qin Feiyang glared at him. It's because you have more than just the ancient castle and the kill formula. There's something even more incredible. That's your battle soul. The 9-leaf fire lotus and the crimson sword soul. These two battle souls are usually reserved, but when they unleash their might, they're heaven-defying. Moreover, I wonder if you've noticed. Every time the dragon god sees your two battle souls, his expression is slightly different. It seems like they used to know each other. And do you remember? Last time, when the dragon god brought the dragon princess here, the dragon god inexplicably said a few words. At that time, you must have suspected that the dragon god was communicating with the two war souls. Madman said. Qin Feiyang scratched his head and said, Now that you mention it, it does seem a little unusual. What do you mean by seems? It's unusual to begin with. The madman rolled his eyes and chuckled. Peerless powerhouse, please take care of me in the future. Scram. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and said, Actually, I'm also suspecting you. Are you doubting me? Madman was stunned and asked suspiciously, What do I have to suspect? Of course you're worthy of suspicion. You want to. You can absorb the power of evil, enter the evil moon, and touch the mysterious blood bead in the evil moon. And the most outrageous thing is that you can actually hope for the special power of evil in Fallen Valley. There's something even more unbelievable. The Blood Demon Tower actually abandoned King Yu's father and ran with you. You have to know that he's the master of the Blood Demon Tower. Tell me, is this normal? Qin Feiyang said. Madman was stunned. Hearing Qin Feiyang's words, it did seem a little abnormal. Yes, you're indeed worthy of suspicion. Hearing this, the Beast Emperor also looked at Madman in surprise. Suspect what? Suspect that I'm also the reincarnation of a peerless powerhouse. Your imagination is really rich. Madman was helpless. If I'm really the reincarnation of a powerhouse, then you must be one too. And your previous life must be related to the blood demon race. Otherwise, how do you explain all this? Qin Feiyang said. You're talking about wind and rain. Madman was speechless. The Beast Emperor sized up the two of them and shook his head. Not simple, not simple. Both of you are not simple. Looking at the serious look on the Beast Emperor's face, Qin Feiyang and Madman couldn't help but find it funny. Who was the one who said that they shouldn't take it seriously? Now he was the one who took it seriously. Reincarnation? How could such an illusory thing really exist? It was fine to coax children. Let's cultivate. With that, Qin Feiyang closed his eyes. Don't worry. If I'm really the reincarnation of a powerhouse, I'll definitely protect you in the future. Madman grinned at the Beast Emperor and closed his eyes as well. The Beast Emperor smiled bitterly. Why did it sound so unreliable? However, were these two guys really the reincarnation of a powerhouse? Reincarnation, does it exist or not? Next, the ancient city of King Yu was peaceful. The ancestral dragon and the chief pavilion master were killed. The other ancestral dragons fled, and Yi Zhong also left. The Beast Emperor, Wang Ming and Yang Li all submitted to Qin Feiyang. In other words, all the giants of the divine land were almost annihilated. Apart from these people, no one else dared to cause trouble in the ancient city of Qingyu. Therefore, the ancient city of Qingyu was as peaceful as it was before hell opened. However, it was different outside. The Blood Demon clan in the various ancient cities and the beasts in hell were still chasing after humans. Killings, battles, and deaths were happening all the time. In the blink of an eye, more than a year had passed. Bang! On this day, the white-eyed wolf broke through to the ninth heaven realm. The Beast Emperor had also reconstructed his body. After all, there was a time array that lasted 500 years. Even if the Beast Emperor had a divine art, it wouldn't take long. The Beast Emperor who had reconstructed his body had undoubtedly recovered to his peak state. If there weren't any rules restricting him, then with his cultivation base he would be able to sweep through the Hell King. No. If there were no restrictions, it wouldn't be that easy to sweep through hell. After all, the Blood Demon Elder had returned. He was a terrifying existence at the perfected indestructible realm. Another period of time passed. Madman had also successfully entered the ninth heaven realm. When Madman broke through, he realized that Qin Feiyang was also about to break through. This was because they had broken through to the ninth heaven realm one after the other. As expected, after a period of time, Qin Feiyang also broke through to the ninth heaven realm as he wished. This feeling of cultivation skyrocketing is really great. Qin Feiyang opened his eyes and his face was filled with joy. Then let's not go to the divine demon forest. Let's just cultivate in seclusion. Madman said. He really didn't want to take the risk. Qin Feiyang instantly rolled his eyes at him and said in disdain, "Cowering, is this still the madman I know? If you don't work hard, I think you'll never catch up to Ancestor in this lifetime." Kidding. If I get serious, I can instantly kill Qin Batian. Madman instantly frowned. Instantly kill Qin Batian? That's difficult. Do you know? There are strong and weak law powers. The strongest law powers are the law of time and the law of space and time. Qin Batian has the ability to travel through space. That's the law of space and time. To be honest, your law of slaughter really can't compare to his. Beast Emperor said. So what if it's the law of space and time? Just wait and see. I'll go to the divine demon forest and comprehend the law of space and time. Let's go now. Madman suddenly stood up and shouted. Qin Feiyang laughed and shook his head. Don't worry, I've also thought a lot during my seclusion. What are you thinking about? Madman paused and looked at him suspiciously. Beast Emperor also looked at Qin Feiyang. Our strength shouldn't be enough to deal with the dragons. After all, the dragons themselves have the 10 ancestral dragons, the patriarchs and various elders. They're all at the imperishable realm. Apart from them, there are also humans who entered the divine dragon island from the dragon god palace. These humans are also at the imperishable realm. And we don't know how many there are. So, we have to strengthen our own strength. Qin Feiyang said. Old thing, you should know how many imperishable realm experts there are on the divine dragon island. Right? Madman turned to look at Beast Emperor and said. Old thing? Beast Emperor's face darkened. If there's something to ask, he's a senior. If there's nothing to ask, he's an old thing. Why is he so realistic? I don't know the exact number, but according to my estimation, there's at least this number. Beast Emperor stretched out a thumb. 10. Madman frowned. 10. What are you thinking about? The 10 ancestral dragons are already 10, okay? Beast Emperor rolled his eyes. Madman smiled embarrassedly and said, 100. 100? Then you have to look down on the dragons. Beast Emperor said. Madman frowned and said 1,000. Yes. Beast Emperor nodded. Damn. Madman was dumbfounded. This was too terrifying. Qin Feiyang said. This 1,000 should only be at the half-step imperishable realm, right? How do you know? Beast Emperor was surprised. Feng Daji said so. Hua Yi and I asked him before, and he said that there are at least 1,000 half-step imperishable realm experts on the Divine Dragon Island. Qin Feiyang said. That's right. If we add the initials small and large, there's no doubt that there are even more. For example, many of the elders of the various clans are at the initial stage imperishable realm, and the patriarchs of the various clans are all at the small stage imperishable realm. Beast Emperor said. Damn it. Isn't this too outrageous? It seems that our strength is far inferior to theirs. Madman said. So we have to take this opportunity to strengthen our strength. Qin Feiyang said. How? Madman was suspicious. Among the people who entered the Nether King's hell this time, there are some hidden supreme experts. These supreme experts don't belong to the dragons, nor do they belong to the Dragon Slayer Palace. We can take this opportunity to recruit all of them, Qin Feiyang said. I don't think there are many. That's because I know almost all of the reclusive supreme experts. There are no more than 100 of them in the entire divine land. And they are all smart people. The dragons suddenly opened the Nether King's hell. They must be plotting something. So I guess that only a few people will enter the Nether King's hell. Furthermore, he will definitely change his appearance and keep a low profile after entering the hell of the underworld. It will be difficult to find them. Beast Emperor shook his head. Chapter 2705. We'll recruit as many as we can. As for finding them, actually it's not difficult. Qin Feiyang shook his head. The Beast Emperor looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. How could such a difficult thing not be difficult in Qin Feiyang's eyes? Let me ask you, why would experts at their level enter the Nether King's hell? Qin Feiyang said. Of course, it's because of the inheritance of the heaven-defying divine objects and the power of laws. The Beast Emperor said without hesitation. Yes, only the heaven-defying divine objects and the power of laws can arouse the interest of the supreme experts of the eternal realm. Then why don't we use this to make them come to us? Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Come to us? The Beast Emperor was slightly stunned and said, You mean use the heaven-defying divine objects to lure them? That's right. Qin Feiyang nodded. Okay. I'm confused. You didn't even think of such a simple reason. The Beast Emperor shook his head. You're not confused. You're stupid. Otherwise, how could you fall into our hands? The white-eyed wolf suddenly opened his eyes and looked at him with disdain. The Beast Emperor's mouth twitched. Each of them was really sharp-tongued. They had already become a family. Couldn't they save him some face? What's with that look? Although you're in the imperishable stage, you still have to call me Big Brother here. The white-eyed wolf said. Brother? The Beast Emperor was speechless. Why don't you look at yourself in the mirror? You don't agree? The white-eyed wolf glared and shouted. Little Qinzi, little lunatic, go and bite him. Looking for a beating? Qin Feiyang and the Beast Emperor glared at him. It's just a joke. Don't take it seriously. Seeing that the situation was not good, the white-eyed wolf immediately smiled apologetically. What a piece of work. The Beast Emperor shook his head. Qin Feiyang glared at the white-eyed wolf and said, Senior Yu King, can you come in for a moment? Whoosh. A short while later, the Ghost King appeared in front of everyone. He swept his eyes over the auras of Qin Feiyang, the lunatic and the white-eyed wolf, and said with a smile, You've all broken through. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded with a smile and said, There's something I need your help with, and only you can help me. Speak. Yu Wang said with a smile. I want you to spread the news that there are a large number of heaven-defying divine artifacts in the Devil-Demon Forest, as well as the inheritance of the power of laws. Qin Feiyang said. The Yu King was taken aback and he asked suspiciously, Why is that? Qin Feiyang briefly explained the plan. I see. All right. This king will have Shweda, and the others make the arrangements. Yu Wang said. I'll have to trouble you then. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and smiled. It's just a small matter. The Yu King waved his hands. Qin Feiyang said. How's the progress of the blood collection? About this king doesn't know yet. After all, you know that we can't send messages to the Hell King. We can only know when the people we sent out come back. Are you in a hurry? The Yu King asked. I'm not in a hurry. How about this? When the blood is collected, get someone to send it to the Godfiend Square, and leave it to me. Qin Feiyang said. The Yu King was stunned and said, In that case, you're planning to leave? There was a trace of reluctance in his expression. Although he had not known Qin Feiyang for long, he really treated Qin Feiyang as a friend. It will take some time to spread the news. Therefore, I won't leave for the time being. I'm planning to stay here and study the deity techniques. I'll also take a stroll around the ancient city. I've been here for so long. I've either been dealing with matters outside or cultivating in seclusion. I've never taken a good look around the ancient city, Qin Feiyang said with a smile. That's great. This king will personally accompany you to walk around. The Yu King smiled from the bottom of his heart. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded. After the Yu King left, Qin Feiyang sat cross-legged on the ground and continued to comprehend the Guthyuan swordsmanship, ruins of end, eclipse of sun and moon. Because these three deity techniques were only at the legendary level, now that he had time, he might as well upgrade them to the supreme level. Then there was the rising dragon tactic and concealment tactic. These two deity techniques still had a lot of room for improvement. Qin Feiyang, you can't just build a cart behind closed doors. Why don't we have a spar? Frenzy suddenly looked at Qin Feiyang sneakily and said. Ha! Qin Feiyang was stunned. He opened his eyes and looked at Frenzy with a smile. Sure, I was just worried that I wouldn't have a sparring partner. Fighting was the fastest way to upgrade a deity technique. Back then, these deity techniques like the Dragon God technique were upgraded from his battle with the Fire Lotus. Then let's do it. Frenzy looked at Qin Feiyang provocatively. Alright. Qin Feiyang immediately stood up and went all out. Guthyuan swordsmanship, ruins of end, eclipse of sun and moon were all unleashed. A terrifying divine aura suddenly spread out in all directions. The ancient city of the Yu King was a supreme-level artifact and was very resistant, so there was no need to worry about it being destroyed by the shockwaves of the battle. Wait a minute, let's say in advance that you can't activate your battle soul. Frenzy shouted. Aren't you talking nonsense? Is there a need to activate your battle soul to spar? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. Little guy, you've been fooled. Frenzy suddenly laughed sinisterly and directly activated the blood demon domain. Qin Feiyang's cultivation immediately began to plummet. Lower Ninth Heaven Realm, Initial Ninth Heaven Realm, Half-Step Ninth Heaven Realm, Perfected Paragon God, Perfected Paragon God. That's right. His cultivation plummeted straight to Perfected Paragon God. Haha. See how I'm going to beat you up. Frenzy laughed and pounced forward like lightning, sending Qin Feiyang flying with a slap. Bastard! Didn't you say that I can't activate my battle soul? Qin Feiyang roared angrily. Is the blood demon domain a battle soul? This is a divine art, okay? Frenzy said proudly. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. The blood demon domain was a divine art, not a battle soul. Therefore, Frenzy didn't break the rules by activating the blood demon domain. Had he been tricked? Little Frenzy, quickly beat him up. I've long found him an eyesore. Don't be polite with me. White-Eyed Wolf also wanted to see the world in chaos and howled continuously. I promise I won't disappoint you. Frenzy smiled at White-Eyed Wolf and kicked him again. Puff! Qin Feiyang immediately spurted out a mouthful of blood, and his entire body smashed into the wall behind him like a meteorite. Yes, yes, yes. That's it. Beat him to death. White-Eyed Wolf jumped up and down excitedly. Beat him to death. Beast Emperor's face twitched when he heard this. Those who didn't know would think that there was a blood feud between them. What kind of people were they? When they were on good terms, they were closer than blood brothers, and were even willing to die for each other. When they were bad, they were worse than anyone else. Was he really old, or were these young people too avant-garde? He didn't understand. White-Eyed Wolf, if you dare to yell again, I'll beat you up, Qin Feiyang said angrily. He had unknowingly been tricked by Frenzy. Beat me up? I'll beat you up first. The White-Eyed Wolf bared its fangs. Then, it turned into a streamer of light, and kicked Qin Feiyang's body. Puff. Qin Feiyang spurted out another mouthful of blood, and flew to the opposite side. A perfected paragon god dares to be arrogant? Aren't you looking for a beating? Haha. Frenzy laughed and rushed to the other party, kicking him too. Qin Feiyang turned in the air and flew toward White-Eyed Wolf. The next scene was interesting. Qin Feiyang was like a rubber ball, being kicked around by Frenzy and White-Eyed Wolf. I don't understand. Beast Emperor shook his head and sighed. He turned and walked to the side, leaning against the wall and watching this scene speechlessly. The first level. Hearing the commotion, King Yu waved his hand, and the scene of the second level appeared. When he saw what happened on the second level, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This group of people was indeed a little unpredictable. Immediately, King Yu dispersed the scene and walked out of the hall shouting, 10 commanders, come here quickly. Whoosh. Not long later, Shweta and the others flew through the air and landed on the square in front of the hall. Go and make the arrangements immediately. Say that the forest of gods and devils has the inheritance of heaven-defying artifacts and the power of laws. You must spread it to the entire hell in the shortest time possible. King Yu instructed. What are you doing? Shweta was suspicious. This is Brother Qin's plan. Just do as he says. King Yu said. All right. The 10 of them nodded and left at lightning speed. You're really something. You do whatever Qin Feiyang asks you to do. If others see you, they will think that you're his lackey. You're really making the blood demons proud. The blood-red clothed old man walked out from the side and snorted coldly at King Yu. Lord Father, you're overthinking things. Friends should help each other. Isn't that right? King Yu smiled bitterly. You treat him as a friend, but he might not treat you as a friend, the blood-red clothed old man said. You're prejudiced against him. King Yu was displeased. I think you've been bewitched by him. The blood-red clothed old man snorted. King Yu frowned and walked to the front of the blood-red clothed old man. Lord Father, tell me honestly, why are you so insistent on possessing Frenzy and the Blood Demon Tower? Ever since you obtained the Blood Demon Tower, it has never disobeyed your wishes. But this time, why did he choose to abandon you and leave with Frenzy? King Yu was puzzled. Hearing this, the blood-red clothed old man fell silent. Father, although we've been separated for a long time, I'm still your son, and you're still my father. Shouldn't father and son be honest with each other? King Yu sighed. Phew. The blood-red clothed old man took a deep breath and looked at King Yu. Do you really want to know? Yes. King Yu nodded. The blood-red clothed old man said. Then come closer. King Yu did as he was told, and moved closer to the blood-red clothed old man. The blood-red clothed old man muttered a few words in King Yu's ear. What? King Yu exclaimed, his face full of shock. Now you know why I want to possess him, the blood-red clothed old man said. Yes. King Yu nodded and turned to look at the second floor, his eyes filled with disbelief. But then he looked at the blood-red clothed old man and said, If what you said is true, then all the more you can't do this. What do you know? Only by possessing him can I truly control the Blood Demon Tower. The most important thing is still the source of evil. In this world, only he can control the source of evil, and the source of evil can only be heard by him. As long as I control the Blood Demon Tower and the source of evil, then in the future, I'll definitely be able to defeat the Dragon God, and replace the Dragon God to become the new ruler of Hell, the blood-red clothed old man said in a deep voice. Chapter 2706. Defeat the Dragon God. Replace the Dragon God and become the new ruler of the Nether King Hell. Father, I didn't expect you to have such ambition. When King Yu heard this, he wasn't happy at all. Instead, he looked angry. Don't you want to truly rule the Nether King Hell? Don't you want to defeat the Dragon God and give the Blood Demon race true peace? The blood-red old man shouted. I do. But we can rely on our own efforts. King Yu said. Rely on our own efforts? Now that there are restrictions, you can't even reach the half-step Undying Realm, and you still want to defeat the Dragon God. Don't you think it's funny? The blood-red old man sneered. Even if you succeed in seizing the body, can you break the restrictions? If you can't break the restrictions, you still can't defeat the Dragon God. King Yu shook his head. Then I can at least leave the Nether King Hell and go to the ancient world to cultivate. As long as I go to the ancient world, even if I cultivate from the beginning, I can return to my peak state. I can even surpass the peak and break through to the perfection undying realm. In short, it's better than waiting for death in the Nether King Hell. The blood-red old man snorted. No matter what you say, I won't agree. I believe it's not just me. Our blood demon race won't agree either. According to human words, you're deceiving your master and destroying your ancestors. King Yu's attitude was very firm, and the blood-red old man was helpless. Looking at the blood-red old man's expression, King Yu sighed and said, "Father, trust me this time. Don't think so much in the future. Qin Feiyang and Madman will definitely help our blood demon race regain our freedom. You can enjoy your old age in peace. If you're really bored, I'll go find a wife and give birth to a chubby boy. You can play with your grandson when you're free. Isn't that great?" King Yu smiled. Useless. The blood-red old man snorted and left angrily. Why are you leaving? I'm telling you the truth. Don't you want a grandson at all? King Yu smiled. Get lost. The blood-robed old man shouted without turning his head. Looking at the back view of the blood-red clothed old man, Yu Wang could not help but reveal a smug smile. 6 months later, Shui Gang, One-Eyed Giant, Luotian City's city lord, Shui Laosher, these people who were familiar with Qin Feiyang all came to the ancient city of King Yu one after another. He heard that Qin Feiyang was leaving, so he wanted to see him off in person. Half a year had passed. The Blood Demon tribe had deliberately spread the news that there was a heaven-defying divine object in the Divine Demon Forest. The inheritance of nomological laws had already spread throughout the underworld King's Hell. Those who were still alive were practically all rushing towards the Godfiend Forest. The second level. Half a year had passed in the outside world, which meant tens of thousands of years had passed in the second level. Qin Feiyang had also successfully raised his Guyuan sword technique, Ruins of En technique, Eclipse of the Sun and Moon to the supremacy level. This was especially true for the Guyuan sword art. Under Qin Feiyang's painstaking research, he had created an ultimate killing move. Qin Feiyang once again increased the power of the Rising Dragon secret art and the concealment art. But this time, what he increased was not the number of times. In other words, the current Rising Dragon secret art could only increase his power by 2 small realms. The concealment art could only be activated twice a day. But the time was different now. Whether it was the Rising Dragon secret art or the concealment art, they had both been increased to 2 hours. That's right. In the past, the Rising Dragon secret art and the concealment art could only be activated for an hour. But now, they could be activated for 2 hours. Moreover, even when facing a battle of the same realm at close range, the concealment art state of invisibility would not be broken. It could be said that these 2 deity arts had undergone brand new changes under Qin Feiyang's diligent research. On this day, Qin Feiyang, Frenzy, White-Eyed Wolf, and Beast Emperor left the second level. During this period of time, the White-Eyed Wolf also seemed to be studying the deity arts, but it still maintained its mysteriousness. Frenzy and Qin Feiyang had asked it several times, but it only replied with one sentence. It was a secret. And Frenzy naturally wasn't idle either. According to Qin Feiyang's inquiry, Frenzy seemed to have created a brand new move. In other words, now the Blood Demon art had more than 5 moves, it had a total of 6 moves. Frenzy had also renamed the Blood Demon art to the Blood Demon 6 moves. However, until now Qin Feiyang still didn't know what the 5th move was, let alone the 6th move. Frenzy had always kept the 6th move a secret. Blood Shield, Blood 10th, Luotian City Lord, and the Cyclops. When he saw these 4 people, Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. He hurriedly went up and smiled. Why are you here? We heard that you were about to leave, so we came to send you off. The Cyclops smiled. You're too polite. Qin Feiyang was very touched. The Blood Demon race was indeed a group of people who valued friendship and loyalty. Just like the Luotian City Lord. He had only stayed in Luotian Ancient City for a short period of time. Their relationship was at most ordinary friends. But now, knowing that he was about to leave, The Luotian city lord had personally come from afar to send him off. Humans really couldn't be compared to the blood demon race. No matter how good the relationship between humans was on the surface, they might stab you in the back one day. But the blood demon race, as long as you could get their recognition, you would be their friend forever. They wouldn't change because of anything and wouldn't plot against you behind your back. So, he had to cherish the friendship of the blood demon race. Brother Qin, Brother Frenzy, when do you plan to leave? King Yu asked with a smile. Since Blood Shield and the rest are here, then we'll be thick-skinned and stay for a few more days. Qin Feiyang smiled. Haha. What do you mean by being thick-skinned? We're more than happy. Blood Shield laughed. He and Qin Feiyang had gone through hardships together. They had experienced life and death together, so their relationship was naturally deeper. It could be said that in Blood Shield's eyes, Qin Feiyang was his brother. All right then. We'll accompany Brother Qin and the rest to have fun these few days. Shweta, prepare the banquet immediately. King Yu instructed. Okay. Shweta nodded. Banquet? Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. He had experienced the banquet of the blood demon race when he was in Luotian ancient city. No matter if it was food or wine, they all contained evil power. To humans, such a banquet was a slow-acting poison. However, it was difficult to refuse their hospitality. Besides, he couldn't refuse these kind and adorable blood demons. It's okay. You can eat and drink as much as you want. Frenzy patted Qin Feiyang's shoulder and chuckled. That's right. With me and little Frenzy around, are you still afraid of the evil powers? White-Eyed Wolf said proudly. Haha. Qin Feiyang laughed loudly. That was true. With White-Eyed Wolf and Frenzy around, what was the evil powers? For the next few days, the ancient city of King Yu was filled with jubilation. However, the blood-red-clothed old man did not appear. It was as if he had entered the second level to reconstruct his physical body. In fact, he deliberately avoided Qin Feiyang and the rest. Because every time he saw Frenzy, he couldn't help but go crazy. Thus, he waited for Frenzy to leave the second level before entering. Happy times always pass quickly. 5 days later, outside the city, Qin Feiyang, Frenzy, Beast Emperor, White-Eyed Wolf, Wang Ming, and Yang Li stood together. Opposite them, King Yu stood in the wind and smiled. Brother Qin, Brother Frenzy, I won't be sending you off personally. You can just send us off here. Qin Feiyang smiled. King Yu said, take care. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at them one by one. King Yu, Cyclops, Shui Gang, Shui Laosher, Luotian City Lord, the 10 commanders. There were also the countless blood demons behind them. Thank you for taking care of us all these years. I, Qin Feiyang, will always remember this favor. You guys take care too, because we'll meet again in the future. Also, I promise you that the next time we meet, the blood demons will regain their freedom. Qin Feiyang's voice was sonorous and forceful. This was his first real promise to the blood demon race. Similarly, it also proved his determination. Okay. King Yu nodded repeatedly. This was what he had been waiting for. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and turned to Frenzy with a smile. Let's go then. Take care. Frenzy cupped his fists and smiled at King Yu and the rest before turning to leave resolutely. After being together for so long, he also had deep feelings for the blood demons. He was a little reluctant to leave. See you again. Beast Emperor looked at King Yu and smiled. See you again. King Yu nodded. There was originally a deep grudge between the two of them, but now that Beast Emperor was with Qin Feiyang, King Yu didn't pursue the matter. Furthermore, he also treated him as a friend. When you're free, go and find more heaven-defying treasures. Don't be so indifferent. If there's a battle in the future, I might need your help. Of course. When the time comes, if you want to give them to me, I won't stand on ceremony. White-Eyed Wolf looked at King Yu and the rest and chuckled. Okay. King Yu nodded. Let's go. The ingrate yelled out in high spirits, then turned around and left. Wang Ming and the other two nodded at King Yu and also turned to leave. Qin Feiyang looked at White-Eyed Wolf's back and shook his head with a smile. Then he looked at King Yu and said, remember to send the blood to me after you're done collecting it. Okay. King Yu nodded and also looked up at Frenzy's back. He said telepathically, "Brother Qin, please take good care of Frenzy." Ha! Qin Feiyang was stunned. Why did he suddenly say that? You'll understand in the future. King Yu smiled. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at Shui Gang and the rest. He cupped his fists and said, "Everyone, let's part ways here. Take care." Everyone also cupped their fists and sent him off according to human etiquette. Qin Feiyang looked at King Yu's ancient city again with a faint smile on his face. Then, he turned and quickly left under the gazes of King Yu and the rest. "Father, did you hear Qin Feiyang's promise? How can we let down such a person?" After Qin Feiyang and the rest disappeared, King Yu lowered his head and looked at a certain part of the city below. The blood-red old man was standing in the crowd. Faced with King Yu's question, the blood-red old man was silent. After a long while he snorted coldly and said, "A human's promise is nonsense. It's worthless. Only idiots like you would be stupid enough to believe it." With that, he turned and walked toward the palace without looking back. The blood demons in front all retreated to the side. Everyone was still in awe of such an old clan leader. "Worthless," King Yu murmured. He raised his head again and looked in the direction where Qin Feiyang and the rest had disappeared. He smiled and said, "Then let's wait and see." Chapter 2707. In the sky above a mountain range, Qin Feiyang and the others were moving as fast as lightning. To be honest, I didn't have a good impression of the Blood Demon clan before. I thought they were all violent and rude guys. But after spending some time with them, I realized that they are kinder than us. Wang Ming shook his head. "Yes, we're lucky to be friends with them." Yang Li also nodded. "You should be lucky that you surrendered to us. Otherwise, would you have the chance to be friends with the Blood Demon clan?" The white-eyed wolf said. Yes. The two of them were stunned and quickly nodded. The white-eyed wolf glanced at the Beast Emperor and said, "Little Lin, shouldn't you show us something?" "Little Lin?" The Beast Emperor froze. What kind of name was that? You're a fire Qilin. Is it wrong for me to call you Little Lin? How about I call you Little Fire or Little Qilin? The white-eyed wolf asked. Little Fire, Little Qilin? The Beast Emperor's mouth twitched and he said helplessly, "Then just call me Little Lin." "What do you mean by show us something? Why are you so stupid? Look at me, Little Crazy and Little Qinzi. We're only at the 9th heaven stage. We definitely can't compare with you in speed. So you have to take us on the road," the white-eyed wolf said. Okay. The Beast Emperor nodded and took everyone away at lightning speed. That's it. The white-eyed wolf frowned. What else? The Beast Emperor looked at him suspiciously. Can this be called show us something? The real show is to take us on the road, the white-eyed wolf said. Take you on the road? The Beast Emperor was stunned for a moment, but he soon understood and said angrily, "Don't even think about it. You want me to be your mount? No way. After all, I'm a superior at the 9th heaven stage. I'm also the venerable sovereign of the Dragon Slayer Palace. It's already unfair to submit to Qin Feiyang and listen to Qin Feiyang's orders. You want me to be your mount? Might as well kill him. Little Qinzi, look at him. He still doesn't have any self-awareness. I might as well fulfill his wish and erase his soul." The white-eyed wolf pouted. "Wolf cub, I'm telling you, don't go too far. This is my bottom line," the Beast Emperor said with a dark expression. "You've already become our lackey, and you're still talking about your bottom line with us? Don't you think it's a little ridiculous?" The white-eyed wolf scoffed. "Bastard, do you want me to fall out with you?" the Beast Emperor roared. "Then go ahead. I want to see what kind of waves you can make." The white-eyed wolf was filled with disdain. In the face of this ingrate, the Beast Emperor was truly helpless. All right. Although the Beast Emperor was indeed hateful in the past, we are now family. There is no need to make things difficult for him. Qin Feiyang smiled. Hateful indeed. The corner of the Beast Emperor's mouth twitched. Are you speaking up for me? Qin Feiyang smiled and asked, "Given your speed, how long will it take to get to the Forest of Gods and Demons?" At normal speed, It will take more than 90 years. If there are ferocious beasts blocking the way, it will definitely take longer. The Beast Emperor said. Ferocious beasts definitely won't block the way now. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, what if we use the Supreme Auxiliary Divine Art the entire time? The Supreme Auxiliary Divine Art can increase our speed by 7 times. The Beast Emperor thought for a moment and said, we can get there in a little over 10 years. Alright then. You, Wang Ming, and Yang Li will take turns leading the way. Try to get to the Forest of Gods and Demons as soon as possible. Also, the 3 of you need to change your appearances. Qin Feiyang said. Do we still need to change our appearances? Wang Ming was doubtful. Of course. Chief Pavilion Master and the Ancestral Dragons still don't know that you've already submitted to me. And I believe that the Ancestral Dragons definitely won't let it go. When the time comes, we might as well give them a surprise. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Alright then. Wang Ming nodded. The 2 of them took the illusion elixirs and turned into 2 burly men. The Beast Emperor had a human form to begin with, so he also changed his appearance slightly. Senior brother crazy, change your appearance too. After all, many people know that you and my other identity, Li Buer, are very close. If people know that you're with me, there will definitely be a lot of trouble when we return to Divine Land. Qin Feiyang looked at Madman and said, you have the final say. Crazy took out an illusion elixir and threw it directly into his mouth. Looking at the 4 of them, Qin Feiyang said with a smile, this way, even when we return to Divine Land, no one will know about your relationship with me. The Beast Emperor frowned. Are you sure Yi Zhong won't leak it? Yes. When we return to Divine Land, everything will be the same as usual. Qin Feiyang nodded. I really hope you're not overconfident. The Beast Emperor shook his head. Then let's wait and see. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Boom. Half a month later, the group arrived in the sky above a desert. There were also battle fluctuations ahead. They looked at each other, restrained their auras and flew over. Very soon, they saw a battlefield that was too horrible to look at. On the battlefield, yellow sand was flying. Hundreds of people were besieging 2 people. However, these hundreds of people, although they had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers, their faces were filled with fear at this moment. The 2 people on the other side were a blood-haired young man and a blurry blood shadow. The blood-haired young man's cultivation was not strong, but the blood shadow's strength was terrifying. Every time he attacked, 1 person would die. Furthermore, his killing methods were extremely cruel, tearing apart the other party's consciousness and devouring their soul. It's them. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. His strength has improved so quickly. Wang Ming looked at the blood-haired young man and could not help but frown. You know him? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. The last time you went to look for them, I happened to be there too. And it was then that I followed you and Shui Gang all the way to Luotian Ancient City. Wang Ming nodded. I see. Qin Feiyang was suddenly enlightened. That was right. The blood-haired young man was Li Feng. As for the blood shadow, it was naturally the blood spirit that had been following Li Feng. Qin Feiyang looked at it for a while and frowned. Do you know what the hell this blood spirit is? No. I've never seen it before. The Beast Emperor shook his head and said, but, at this point he could not help but frown, seeming a little confused. Just tell me. Qin Feiyang said. The Beast Emperor frowned and said, its aura seems a little familiar. Familiar? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. The Beast Emperor nodded. He had never seen it before, but it was a little familiar. Why did he have such a contradictory feeling? Before long, hundreds of people were slaughtered by the blood spirit. It feels like it's being devoured. This time, you will definitely be able to break through. The blood spirit laughed sinisterly. Li Feng nodded, his eyes filled with a bloodthirsty glint. A wave of blood emerged from his body and pounced on the sea of corpses below. Very quickly, all the flesh and blood was devoured by Li Feng, leaving behind a pile of white bones. This method, the Beast Emperor's gaze trembled. It's a little scary. The madman and the white-eyed wolf could not help but mutter. Boom. After devouring everyone's flesh and blood, Li Feng's aura skyrocketed. Before long, he successfully broke through. This is the perfected divine lord. Wang Ming exclaimed inwardly. Is there a problem? Seeing Wang Ming's huge reaction, Yang Li looked at him suspiciously. Of course there's a problem. Because the last time I saw him, he was only a low-level divine lord. How long has it been? He soared all the way to a perfected divine lord. This speed is ridiculously fast. Wang Ming was shocked. It can't be. Hearing this, Yang Li was also dumbfounded. Qin Feiyang frowned, devouring flesh and blood to strengthen himself. How many people had they killed in the past few years? There's someone? Suddenly, as if sensing something, Li Feng suddenly looked in the direction of Qin Feiyang and the others. When he saw Qin Feiyang, his expression froze. Isn't it better to have someone? If one comes, we'll kill one. If two come, we'll kill two. The blood spirit laughed sinisterly and turned to look at Qin Feiyang and the others. What? It's him. When he saw that it was Qin Feiyang, the blood spirit's expression changed abruptly. Let's go, Qin Feiyang said. Wang Ming led everyone and flew toward Li Feng and the others. Blood spirit. What should we do? Li Feng was extremely flustered. Although they had fallen out long ago, he still could not help but panic when facing Qin Feiyang head-on. He was like a child who had done something wrong and suddenly found an adult beside him. Don't be afraid. He definitely won't kill you. The blood spirit thought and entered Li Feng's body decisively, because he could see that Qin Feiyang was quite disgusted with him. If he continued to stay outside, it was very likely that he would anger Qin Feiyang. Very impressive. After not seeing you for a few years, you've already broken through to great perfection, godly lord. At this rate, you'll be able to break through to great perfection 9 heavens realm by the time you leave hell. But, is this really what you want to see? What's the difference between you and the dragons who bully others and commit all kinds of crimes? Qin Feiyang pointed at the bones below and said to Li Feng. They're just some ants. What's the matter? Li Feng snorted coldly. Ants, Qin Feiyang murmured and shook his head. Don't forget that you also climbed up step by step from an ant. Yes. Compared to you, I'm just an ant. But so what? If you can become so strong, so can I. Also, don't use this benevolent face to teach me a lesson. Haven't you killed a lot of creatures when you activated the killer domain? Li Feng said angrily. He was originally very flustered, but when he heard Qin Feiyang's words, his rebellious heart was immediately aroused. Qin Feiyang was silent. It seemed that he was indeed not qualified to teach Li Feng a lesson, because he was an executioner whose hands were stained with blood. Fine. I don't care about you. But don't forget the promise you made to Shuigang back then. Qin Feiyang exhaled and looked at Li Feng. Don't worry. I'll remember Shuigang's kindness of not killing us. Since then we haven't hurt a single ferocious beast. As for the blood demon race, when we see them, we avoid them even more. So I didn't break my promise back then. Li Feng said. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at Wang Ming. Let's go. Yes. Wang Ming responded respectfully, then led everyone to fly past Li Feng. Chapter 2708. Seeing Qin Feiyang leave, Li Feng heaved a sigh of relief. Frankly speaking, he was still a little scared. Like a child, even if he was in his rebellious phase, he still had an innate reverence for his parents. Wait! But suddenly, Beast Emperor suddenly roared and looked down at the white bones below. Li Feng shuddered at the sudden roar, and his heart, which had just been put at ease, jumped into his throat again. Qin Feiyang and the others were also startled, and turned to look suspiciously at Beast Emperor. It wasn't common for a grand venerable beast to lose his composure like this. Beast Emperor looked at the white bones and didn't speak for a long time, but his eyes gradually filled with bewilderment. Little Lin, is there a problem? White-eyed Wolf couldn't help asking suspiciously. Beast Emperor turned a deaf ear. All of a sudden, he looked up at Li Feng and asked, What about their souls? Did you devour them too? No. Li Feng instinctively shook his head. But when he came back to his senses, he became angry. Why did he have to answer this person? What does it have to do with you? Swish! The Beast Emperor arrived in front of Li Feng in a single step. He grabbed Li Feng's clothes and said in a low voice, "Kid, you better tell me the truth. Otherwise, even if the young lord helps you, I'll still kill you." His tone was bone-chilling. Li Feng instantly stiffened. Madman looked at Li Feng and Beast Emperor and whispered, "It looks like something big is going on." "It looks like it to me too." Wang Ming nodded. "Speak." Beast Emperor roared, his eyes overflowing with murderous intent. Li Feng couldn't help panicking again as he shook his head. "It wasn't me. I could only devour their flesh and blood." "Then what about their souls?" Beast Emperor shouted. Li Feng said, "It's blood, blood spirit. Blood spirit." Beast Emperor raised his eyebrows and let go of Li Feng. He turned to look at Qin Feiyang and Wang Ming and asked, "Blood spirit can devour souls?" "That's right. He will devour the souls of any living creature that dies in his hands." Qin Feiyang nodded. He already knew about this. Wang Ming also knew. Devour souls. Devouring flesh and blood. Sanguis. The Beast Emperor lowered his head as if he was searching for memories that had been sealed away for a long time. Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other, their hearts full of doubts. What was going on? "It's him." Suddenly, the Beast Emperor's body shook, and then he raised his head to look at Li Feng and said, "I was wondering why it felt slightly familiar. So it's you." "What do you mean?" "It's me." Li Feng was somewhat baffled. The Beast Emperor shouted, "Shut up, I'm not talking to you." "Then who are you talking to?" Li Feng looked at the Beast Emperor suspiciously. Suddenly he thought of something and frowned. "Sanguis?" The Beast Emperor didn't want to see him at all. He said, "Sanguis, stop hiding. Come out." Seems like he knows the origin of the blood spirits. Madman muttered. "I'm really curious. Who exactly is this Xueling?" The white-eyed wolf grumbled. Qin Feiyang, Wang Ming, and Yang Li were also curious. Whoosh! Sanguis appeared in front of Li Feng and looked at the Beast Emperor suspiciously, as if he was also puzzled. The Beast Emperor stared at Sanguis, and a cold smile gradually appeared in his eyes. "Who exactly is he?" Qin Feiyang walked to the Beast Emperor's side and asked suspiciously. The Beast Emperor looked at Qin Feiyang, then looked at Sanguis again and said word by word, "He has a famous name, Ancestor Sanguis." Ancestor Sanguis? Qin Feiyang, Madman, and the white-eyed wolf were stunned. This name was actually quite awesome. "What? He's Ancestor Sanguis?" Wang Ming and Yang Li exclaimed as they ran to the Beast Emperor's side and sized up Sanguis in shock. "You guys also know about Ancestor Sanguis?" Qin Feiyang looked at the two. "I've heard of him, but I've never seen him," the two said. At the same time, seeing the Beast Emperor reveal his identity, Sanguis trembled slightly. "I really didn't expect that after so many years, I could still see you again." The Beast Emperor sneered, and his tone became even colder. "Is there some misunderstanding? I'm not Ancestor Sanguis." "I've never heard of Ancestor Sanguis before," Sanguis said. The Beast Emperor sneered. "Stop pretending. I won't mistake your aura. It's just that it's been too long, and I didn't think of it before." "What nonsense are you talking about? Also, who are you? Why do you say that I'm Ancestor Sanguis?" Sanguis said in an impatient tone. "Are you really going to play dumb?" The Beast Emperor frowned and threw a punch at Sanguis. "What are you doing?" Sanguis retreated in shock and anger. "What am I doing? Of course, I'm going to beat you until you reveal your true form." The Beast Emperor sneered and used an auxiliary technique. An invisible force that could topple mountains and overturn seas shattered the void. Seeing that he couldn't dodge, Sanguis met the Beast Emperor's fist with his palm. Boom! A destructive aura immediately spread out in all directions. Sanguis' human form was almost destroyed by the Beast Emperor's punch. "So it's a soul form?" The Beast Emperor nodded. "Soul form?" Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other. In other words, this Sanguis was just a strand of his soul? "What are you trying to do?" Sanguis roared. His tone seemed to be very anxious. The Beast Emperor was silent. He took another step forward and threw a punch at Sanguis. "Don't go too far," Sanguis roared. "Umph." The Beast Emperor snorted. Divine energy surged in his palm, and a destructive aura shrouded the surroundings. You're still using divine energy? Sanguis was shocked. He suddenly turned into a bloody light and rushed toward the Beast Emperor's glabella. His speed was shockingly fast. He was like a completely different person from before. Even Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf couldn't keep up with Sanguis' speed. Are you trying to silence me? The Beast Emperor sneered. A flame rushed out from his glabella toward the bloody light. That flame was Qilin fire. Qilin fire was one of the most terrifying divine fires in the world. It had the terrifying ability to incinerate everything. Sanguis immediately howled, and his soul form dissipated by a third. Immediately after, Sanguis turned around and rushed to Li Feng. He then swept Li Feng up and started to flee without looking back. The Beast Emperor looked at Wang Ming and Yang Li and shouted, "Don't let him escape." Understood. The two of them nodded. Using their support-type divine arts, they chased after him from the left and right. The Beast Emperor also waved his hand and brought Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf with him. "Little Lin, what the hell is this blood ancestor? Why are you so concerned about him?" The white-eyed wolf was puzzled. The Beast Emperor pondered for a while and sighed. Not many people know the name Blood Ancestor now. Why? If even you care so much, he must be very famous. The white-eyed wolf said. That's right. He's very famous. At that time, there was no one who didn't know about it. The Beast Emperor nodded. The madman said, "From what you're saying, he's someone from a long time ago." "Yes. 100 million years ago." The Beast Emperor said. "No way." Qin Feiyang, the madman, and the white-eyed wolf were dumbfounded. 100 million years ago, that was too long ago. At that time, the blood ancestor's status in the ancient world was comparable to mine now. The Beast Emperor said. Damn. This is too crazy. He's a living fossil. The madman was shocked. He's someone from the previous era. In short, his strength is far beyond your imagination. I don't know if it's good or bad for Li Feng to follow him. The Beast Emperor shook his head. The previous era? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned, and then he turned to look at Madman and asked, "Do you remember that when we were in the Northern Territory and entered the extreme west and encountered the Grey Castle, he seemed to have said the words in the previous era?" "Did he?" The madman was stunned. "Yes. Don't you remember that he opened a barrier called the Realm of Death? This Realm of Death can summon a lot of puppets. At that time, we were wondering why he had so many powerful puppets. But he said, in the previous era, there were as many paragon gods as dogs. He also said that although the previous era ended 100 million years ago, the living beings of the previous era did not go extinct. At that time, we asked him what the previous era was. He said that with our cultivation, we were not qualified to know these secrets." Qin Feiyang said. The madman thought carefully and nodded. "I think so, but he seemed to be talking about the previous era? Isn't that the same thing?" Qin Feiyang was speechless. "So, the Blood Ancestor and the Grey Castle are people of the same era?" The madman said. "The Grey Castle?" The Beast Emperor was slightly taken aback. He looked at the two suspiciously and asked, "What is that?" "You don't know?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. "I don't know." The Beast Emperor shook his head. "That's not right. Didn't the Grey Castle enter the Divine Land with the Blood Ancestor's divine artifact and Mu Tianyang's divine artifact? The Blood Ancestor's divine artifact has returned to his side, so shouldn't the Grey Castle be in the dragon-slaying palace now?" Qin Feiyang asked. "I didn't see the Grey Castle in the dragon-slaying palace." The Beast Emperor shook his head. "What's going on? The Grey Castle isn't in the dragon-slaying palace." Qin Feiyang frowned. Suddenly, he patted his head. The Grey Castle was indeed not in the dragon-slaying palace. Back in the Sky Dragon Sea, Qin Batian personally said that the Grey Castle and the Blood Ancestor weren't with him, but too much time had passed and his memory was a little blurry, so he couldn't remember for a while. Since they weren't together, they naturally couldn't be in the dragon-slaying palace. It was normal that the Beast Emperor didn't know. However, where did the Grey Castle go? He hadn't seriously thought about this question. We'll talk about the Grey Castle later. Let's talk about the Blood Ancestor first. Since he's a peerless almighty from 100 million years ago, why is he still alive in this world? How do you know him? Could it be that you're also from the previous era? The lunatic looked at the Beast Emperor and asked. Me? I'm definitely not from the previous era. After all, that's 100 million years ago. The Beast Emperor shook his head. Since you're not, how do you know him? How can you tell his identity from his aura? The lunatic looked at him suspiciously. Because I saw him 1,000,000 years ago, the Beast Emperor said. 1,000,000 years ago? The lunatic was stunned. That's right. The Beast Emperor nodded. Hurry up and tell us in detail. The lunatic urged. There must be a story behind this. Otherwise, why would the Beast Emperor be so angry? Chapter 2709. The Beast Emperor clenched his fists tightly, his eyes shining with hatred. But gradually, the light faded, his hands loosened, and he shook his head. I don't want to talk about the past. Madman was stunned. White-Eyed Wolf and Qin Feiyang were also speechless. Their curiosity had already been piqued, but he didn't say anything. Wasn't he deliberately keeping them in suspense? But it could also be seen that Blood Ancestor must have done something to hurt the Beast Emperor. Young Master, it seems that we can't catch up. He has also activated some kind of supreme auxiliary divine art. Wang Ming's voice suddenly sounded in front. Qin Feiyang was stunned and looked up. As expected, Blood Spirit's speed was not inferior to Wang Ming and Li Feng's. We must stop him and ask him where his real body is hiding, the Beast Emperor said in a deep voice. This is a little difficult. Wang Ming and Li Feng looked at each other and shook their heads. Qin Feiyang said, No hurry, take it slow, I have a way. Okay. The two nodded. What do you have? The Beast Emperor looked at him suspiciously. Don't forget. We are now friends of the Blood Demon race. As Qin Feiyang spoke, he scanned the desert ahead. Friends of the Blood Demon race? The Beast Emperor was stunned. Did this have anything to do with chasing Blood Spirit? Time flew by. Half an hour passed. A group of people left the desert and entered the sky above a mountain. In the mountain, the mountains rose and fell, and the peaks overlapped. Even from afar, one could feel the ferocious aura from the mountains. This was the aura of fierce beasts. Most of them were of the 9th heaven realm. There was even the fierce power of the great perfection 9th heaven realm. Beast King of this place, I am Qin Feiyang. Please help me stop the two in front. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang roared, his voice like a bell, spreading in all directions. Ha! The Beast Emperor and the others looked at Qin Feiyang in astonishment. Blood Spirit and Li Feng were bewildered. Roar! As soon as he finished speaking, accompanied by a loud beast roar, a giant tiger rushed out from a mountain in front of them. Its body size was dozens of meters. His hair looked as if it had been soaked in blood. His blood-red eyes seemed to be condensed from baleful aura. Looking at him from afar, one couldn't help but feel fear. And its cultivation was shockingly at the great perfection 9 heaven stage. Qin Feiyang? The Crimson Tiger looked at Qin Feiyang's group and asked, Which one of you is Qin Feiyang? Me. Qin Feiyang said. The Blood-Red Tiger asked, What proof do you have? Although the living beings of hell knew that there was a human called Qin Feiyang, many of them didn't know what Qin Feiyang looked like. You need proof? Qin Feiyang felt rather helpless. He pointed at Sanguis and Li Feng and said, Help me stop them. Without proof, how would I know if you're an imposter? The Crimson Tiger refused. Qin Feiyang's mood was very depressed. This was just like the unicorn back then. He had to prove himself. But what proof did he have? King Yu didn't give him any proof. I'm really Qin Feiyang. If you don't make a move, I'll tell Senior King Yu to deal with you. Qin Feiyang threatened. He could only use this method to let the Crimson Tiger make the first move. King Yu. Hearing this name, the Crimson Tiger's pupils immediately shrank and said, All right, I'll believe you for now. Immediately, it lowered its head to look at the mountains below and roared, Guys, come out and stop them. Roar. At that moment, accompanied by deafening roars, Ferocious beasts rushed out from the mountains one after another. The beasts that rushed out were basically all at the Great Perfection 9 Heavens stage. There were more than 200 of them. It's them. The Crimson Tiger stared at Sanguis and Li Feng and shouted, "Roar!" Immediately, the 200 ferocious beasts spread out in all directions, sealing off the space in front and on both sides. "Bastard!" Sanguis was furious and shouted, "He's lying to you. He's not Qin Fei Yang." The Crimson Tiger was stunned. The 200 beasts also looked at each other. Was this really Qin Fei Yang? "Don't be anxious. I'll prove it to you later. You mustn't let them escape because they are the people that Senior King Yu wants to kill," Qin Fei Yang said. "The humans that King Yu wants to kill?" The Crimson Tiger was shocked. If it was true, wouldn't it anger King Yu if it let the two of them go? The consequences of angering King Yu. Just thinking about it made the Crimson Tiger's scalp go numb. It shouted to the beasts, "Brace yourself." The 200 beasts stared at Li Feng and Sanguis fiercely. "What should we do?" Li Feng was a little flustered. Sanguis said in a low voice, "What else can we do? Of course, we have to kill our way out." "Kill our way out? Didn't we say that we won't harm the beasts of hell?" "If we kill our way out, Qin Dage." Li Feng turned to look at Qin Fei Yang. His eyes filled with respect. "Qin Dage. You treat him as your big brother, but what does he treat you as? I think you still don't understand. In his eyes, you're not even comparable to these beasts." Sanguis shouted. Li Feng's eyes trembled. "We'll talk about it later. They're the ones stopping us now. If we don't do anything, how are we going to escape?" Sanguis sighed. He was also very puzzled. Who exactly was that person beside Qin Fei Yang? He could actually recognize him. And judging from his appearance, he was not a kind person. "All right. Try not to kill them." Li Feng nodded helplessly. "You won't achieve anything if you're indecisive. Let me tell you, if you continue to be like this, don't blame me for not helping you." Sanguis snorted. "This is my principle. Shui Gang let us go back then, so we have to fulfill our promise to him. If you can't even fulfill the most basic promise, then do you still deserve to be called a human?" Li Feng said. "Foolish beyond compare. Hopeless." Sanguis was about to go crazy. Who instilled such a stupid idea into this kid's head? Li Feng said. "If you don't agree, I'll stay here and wait for my death." Okay. Sanguis nodded. It was also very helpless to meet such a stubborn kid. Boom. Sanguis made his move. A blood-red light appeared and pounced on the beasts in front of him like a wave. Roar. When the beasts in front saw this, they became ferocious. Divine energy surged and turned into a huge wave that blasted toward the blood-red light. Boom. A destructive aura immediately spread out in all directions. The blood-red light destroyed everything in its path. The divine energy was instantly shattered. The beasts also let out a miserable cry and were sent flying. However, it was not fatal. So strong? Qin Fei Yang was surprised. One had to know that those ferocious beasts were all at the peak of the 9 Heavens realm. No matter how powerful Sanguis was, it was impossible for him to destroy all of them. "You still dare to hurt them?" When the blood-red tiger saw this scene, its eyes flashed fiercely. Roar. With a roar, the blood-red tiger took a step forward and landed in front of Sanguis and Li Feng. "Don't come here to court death." Sanguis snorted. "You're the one courting death." The blood-red tiger roared. Blood-red divine energy rushed out of its body like waves. In the next moment, a huge blood-red moon rose into the sky, emitting an aura that could destroy the world. "This is a supreme killing skill," Sanguis exclaimed. A mere ferocious beast had actually mastered a supreme being killing technique? Li Feng's face could not help but turn pale. In the Nether King's hell, be it the Blood Demon tribe or the beasts, they were indeed not something the divine land could compare to. Boom. The blood-red moon carried a monstrous aura and suppressed Sanguis and Li Feng. "Get lost!" Sanguis roared. A blood-red light surged and a huge skull appeared. This skull was condensed from the blood-red light, and was as huge as a mountain. From afar, it looked like a devil from hell, causing one to panic. Boom. The blood-red moon, the skull, the two colossal objects collided with a loud bang. The surrounding void immediately shattered violently. The mountains below also collapsed. The beast emperor in the mountains fled in fear. Poof! The blood-red tiger suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, and its huge body retreated continuously. The blood-red moon also collapsed and shattered. Obviously, Sanguis was still stronger. I'm actually not his match? The blood-red tiger seemed very surprised by this outcome. However, although Sanguis was stronger, he was still forced to retreat a few steps. That's right, he's the blood ancestor. I remember that this deity art is a supreme being killing technique that he mastered. The beast emperor stared at the blood-red skull and roared. Sanguis suddenly turned to the beast emperor and said angrily, "Who the hell are you?" He had even seen his divine art before? The beast emperor did not reply and shouted, "Wang Ming, take this opportunity to trap him." Understood. Wang Ming nodded. With a wave of his hand, the heaven and earth cage came crashing down. You want to imprison me with this? Sanguis smiled disdainfully, and the skull suddenly blasted toward the heaven and earth cage. With a loud bang, the heaven and earth cage was smashed into pieces. How is this possible? Wang Ming was dumbfounded. Qin Feiyang was also shocked. He had personally experienced Wang Ming's heaven and earth cage. Back then, even he had suffered greatly. But this Sanguis actually shattered it so easily? It was classified according to the grades. This skull had definitely reached the 9th grade. That was the peak of the supreme divine art. It seemed that he could not underestimate it. Go. With a wave of his hand, Sanguis swept Li Feng up and continued to flee. You want to leave after injuring me? The blood-red tiger attacked again with a ferocious aura. Boom. And at the same time, a powerful aura burst out from his body. Startled, Sanguis glanced at the source of the aura and realized that it was actually Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang's cultivation had actually soared directly from 9 heavens great perfection to 9 heavens great perfection. It seems to be the Rising Dragon spell. Li Feng murmured. The Rising Dragon spell was actually a small matter. What really made him panic was that Qin Feiyang had personally made a move. After all, even last time, Qin Feiyang had not really attacked him and Sanguis. He knew Qin Feiyang well. Once Qin Feiyang made a move, it meant that he was already angry. If it was anyone else, so be it. Who was afraid of who? But Qin Feiyang was different. Over the years, whenever Qin Feiyang was angry, the things he did were all earth-shattering. For example, ransacking all the city lord mansions in the north, brazenly destroying the treasure pavilion, and forcing the chief pavilion master to bow his head. Another example was charging into the inland sea and snatching all the heaven-defying divine artifacts, even destroying the beast emperor's physical body and soul. All these were enough to show that once Qin Feiyang was angry, he was a very frightening existence. Chapter 27:10. Boom. While Li Feng was panicking, Qin Feiyang used the heavenly dragon's 9 steps and walked toward them. Let me see how strong your technique is. There was no fear in his expression. His long hair fluttered in the wind, and his body was as straight as an iron pine. He was like a god of war. Whether it was his temperament or aura, everyone present was ashamed of themselves. As you wish. Blood Spirit waved his hand, and the supreme killing technique appeared again. The bloody skull carried a monstrous bloody light and charged toward Qin Feiyang. At the same time, Qin Feiyang took his 9th step. A huge heavenly dragon appeared in the sky, its dragon might shocking the surroundings as it pounced towards the skull. Boom. The two met in an instant. The heavenly dragon let out a wail and dissipated in the void. Poof. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth. Very powerful indeed. Qin Feiyang whispered. Humph. If it wasn't for Li Feng, I would have killed you long ago. Blood Spirit snorted. Kill me? Qin Feiyang wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and sneered. You're quite arrogant. Let's see how long you can pretend to be calm. Blood Spirit snorted, and the skull continued to charge toward Qin Feiyang. The sky and earth were dyed red by the bloody light. A terrifying aura shrouded the surroundings. If it was another great perfection 9th heaven realm cultivator, they might really die under the skull. But was Qin Feiyang the same? One had to know. The deity techniques he had mastered were all sovereign-level deity techniques. Moreover, and the super-powerful 3,000 incarnations. Once the 3,000 incarnations were activated, who under the eternal realm could compete with him? Therefore, even though Qin Feiyang was injured, the madman, white-eyed wolf, beast emperor, Wang Ming, and Yang Li were not worried at all. Qin Feiyang was invincible under the eternal realm. Clang. Qin Feiyang looked up at the skull and waved his hand. Flaming sword shadows appeared. Guthyuan sword technique. The number of Guthyuan sword techniques was determined by one's cultivation. A battle Tharch could summon 50 sword shadows. War God, 60 sword shadows. Sir God, 70 sword shadows. Absolute God, 80 sword shadows. 9 Heavens Realm, 90 sword shadows. Now, Qin Feiyang was at the 9th heaven realm, so he could naturally summon 90 sword shadows. Every single sword image was comparable to an exalted grade divine art, and they emanated a sharp glow that seemed capable of destroying the world. Is there any use in numbers? Sanguis sneered. You'll find out later whether it's useful or not. Qin Feiyang said indifferently. Clang. As his voice fell, 90 sword shadows immediately slashed toward the skull. Crack. Rumble. The two continued to collide. Destructive waves of air rolled out in all directions. The space here seemed to have turned into chaos, and it was like the scene of the beginning of the world. The sword shadow was shattering. The skull was also cracking. As the last sword shadow shattered, the skull also shattered into pieces. Sanguis was surprised. I didn't expect young master to have mastered such a powerful exalted grade killing technique. Yang Li exclaimed. You're surprised? If I let you know that this Guthyuan sword technique was just a weak battle technique in the past, wouldn't your jaw drop? White-eyed wolf said. What? Guthyuan sword technique was just a battle technique in the past. Yang Li was stunned. Yes. White-eyed wolf smiled proudly and said, Little Qinzi improved it step by step. How is it? He's powerful, right? Yes. Yang Li nodded. Under normal circumstances, as long as one broke through to the battle Tharch level, they would abandon their previous battle techniques and directly look for exalted grade divine arts. Because after breaking through to the battle Tharch level, the battle techniques were like little chicks, without any lethality. Just like him. In the past, he had also mastered many perfect battle techniques. But when he broke through to the battle Tharch level, he gave up these perfect battle techniques and looked for exalted grade divine arts. And as far as he knew, there were almost no people who kept their battle techniques. First of all, as mentioned before, the battle techniques had no lethality. Secondly, it was impossible to upgrade a battle technique to exalted grade divine arts without heaven-defying comprehension. Even if one could do it, it would only be a low-tier exalted grade divine art. Therefore, it was better to directly look for a high-tier exalted grade divine art, a perfect grade divine art, or even a peak grade divine art. This way, it wouldn't be so troublesome. However, this Qin Feiyang had actually forcefully raised a battle art to the level of a supreme deity cultivation technique. How did he do it? This comprehension ability was also too terrifying, right? It's just the. Sanguis was also a little surprised at first, but he soon recovered from his shock. After letting out a hearty laugh, he continued to charge towards Qin Feiyang with the shattered skull. Although it was broken into pieces, its power was still extremely strong. It's just so, Qin Feiyang murmured and shook his head. To think that you're a peerless almighty 100 million years ago. What? He's a peerless almighty 100 million years ago. The blood-red giant tiger and a group of beasts looked at Sanguis in shock. They never thought that he would be such a terrifying figure. What do you mean by that? Sanguis was stunned and puzzled. What I mean is, after living for so many years, don't you understand a principle? There's always someone better than you. You can't underestimate anyone. As soon as Qin Feiyang finished speaking, his divine power surged out. 90 sword shadows appeared once again, their sharpness toppling mountains and overturning seas. There's always someone better than you? Of course, I understand this principle. But can you do it? Sanguis laughed and formed another blood-red skull. He said ferociously, I didn't want to kill you, but you're too insensible. Now, I'll send you to hell, and let Li Feng see who's the real expert. Sanguis waved his hand and the skull immediately attacked Qin Feiyang. And from the skull, one could faintly hear the laughter of a malicious spirit. Qin Feiyang looked at him coldly and suddenly said 4 words. 9 become 1. Clang! At that moment, the 90 sword shadows immediately flew towards each other and quickly merged together. In just an instant, all the sword shadows disappeared and were replaced by a sword shadow that was 10,000 zhang long. At that moment, flames surged and waves of fire surged. The sword shadow that was 10,000 zhang long reached the ground and the sky. It was like a divine sword that could split the heavens and exuded a destructive power. That's right. This was a peerless killing technique that he created based on the Guthyuan sword technique. 9 become 1. In other words, all the sword shadows merged together to become one sword shadow. After the fusion, the power would naturally increase exponentially. The current power had almost exceeded the limit of a 9th-grade supreme deity technique. Clang! With a deafening sound, the sword shadow slashed at the skull. Rumble! The blood-colored skull only lasted for 2 breaths of time before it was crushed by the sword shadow with a crack. Sanguis was dumbfounded. Li Feng was also dumbfounded. The Crimson Tiger and the 200-plus ferocious beasts were also dumbfounded. Wasn't this a little too strong? This is the strength that you thought you were infallible? It turns out to be so weak. Qin Feiyang looked at Sanguis indifferently. His tone was cold and full of contempt. Sanguis could not help but fly into a rage out of humiliation. Qin Feiyang looked at Li Feng and shook his head. Now do you understand what kind of person you are following? Li Feng was silent. Kid, be more careful. This 9 become 1 was just created by little Qin Zi. A newly created deity technique can crush Sanguis. Even an idiot would know that they are not on the same level. White-eyed Wolf shook his head. What? Newly created? Li Feng's body trembled. Sanguis was also in disbelief. To create such a terrifying killing technique? How terrifying was this person's talent and comprehension? Chapter 27:11. Qin Feiyang looked at Sanguis and said indifferently, You should have more tricks up your sleeves. Of course. Sanguis nodded. His tone carried a kind of arrogance that disdained everything in the world. It's just a spirit form. How strong can it be? I'm not in the mood to continue fooling around with you. When we leave China, I'll have a good fight with your original body if there's a chance. Remember, don't let me down. With that, Qin Feiyang directly activated the 3,000 clones. 3,000 clones. Beast Emperor and Wang Ming's eyes were burning with passion. This was Qin Feiyang's strongest trick. To be honest, even they wanted to take it for themselves. With these 3,000 clones, given their cultivation and strength, even if they fought the 10 ancestral dragons head-on, they could kill them in seconds. They really couldn't figure it out. Why did Qin Feiyang have so many terrifying godly arts? Wasn't Qin Feiyang from the lower realm? In their eyes, the Forgotten Continent and Great Qin Empire were lower realms. How could a mere lower realm possess such heaven-defying deity techniques? Actually, when Qin Feiyang obtained the 3,000 clones, he didn't realize how terrifying they were. He just felt that they were very powerful. At that time, he saw that Zhuge Mingyang was pretty good at using them, so he snatched them from Zhuge Mingyang. At first, he could summon 1 clone and dozens of clones. He always felt that the 3,000 clones should be a kind of ordinary auxiliary godly art. He had never really studied it. But as his cultivation increased, and as he understood the 3,000 clones, he gradually realized that the 3,000 clones could be comparable to a godly art. No. In some ways, the 3,000 clones were even more powerful than a godly art. In the past, the 6-word godly art was his trump card. But now the 3,000 clones were his strongest trump card. In short, once the 3,000 clones were activated, they could definitely create an impossible miracle on the battlefield. 9-9-1. Once the 3,000 clones appeared, they also activated the Guthyuan sword technique. 3,000 sword shadows that were tens of thousands of meters long hovered in the sky. Their sharpness was peerlessly terrifying, and they shattered the void and the earth within a million miles. Just the might of the 3,000 sword shadows was enough to create a doomsday-like scene. It was hard to imagine what would happen if he was struck by the 3,000 sword shadows. And at this moment, whether it was the Beast Emperor, Xue Ling, Li Feng, or the Crimson Giant Tiger, all of them couldn't help but tremble. This was fear. The 3,000 incarnations and the 3,000 sword shadows were like an army of the Grim Reaper. Li Feng, help me! Sanguis shouted in panic. If it was outside, he wouldn't be afraid. With his strength, even if he was only in his soul form, he could still kill Qin Feiyang in an instant. But it was different here. Even if you are at the Great Perfection Imperishable stage, you can only suppress it to the Great Perfection Nine Heavens stage. Facing Qin Feiyang, who was invincible under the undead realm, there was simply no need to struggle. All he needed to do was stand there and wait for death. Hearing Sanguis's cry for help, Li Feng suddenly quivered. He quickly stood in front of Sanguis and looked at Qin Feiyang, saying, "Qin Dage, you can't kill him." Before Qin Feiyang could speak, the Beast Emperor raised his eyebrows and looked at Li Feng gloomily, saying, "I'll kindly advise you to stay away from him." "It's none of your business." Li Feng glared at the Beast Emperor, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "This is the last thing I'm begging you. Let us go, and we won't disturb you anymore." "Why are you so protective of him?" Qin Feiyang frowned. Li Feng pondered for a moment and said, "Because he's my master." "Master?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. This answer was somewhat unexpected. "You actually acknowledged him as your master? Kid, do you know his identity? His methods? Wake up. It's impossible for him to help you without any ulterior motives." The Beast Emperor shouted. "Do I know what he's after? But I don't care. As long as I can quickly become stronger, as long as I can destroy the dragons, I'm willing to do anything," Li Feng said. "Then what is he after?" Qin Feiyang asked. "I can't say. This is my agreement with him." Li Feng shook his head. Frenzy shouted impatiently, "How troublesome, just kill them all." Hearing this, Li Feng's body trembled slightly. If Qin Feiyang really wanted to kill him, he had no room to fight back. Plop. Suddenly, Li Feng knelt in the air, looking at Qin Feiyang and said, "Qin Dage, I beg you, please let us go." Qin Feiyang lowered his head to look at Li Feng, the disappointment in his eyes growing stronger. Perhaps he shouldn't have helped this kid. If Li Feng had died with the people of Cloud Mountain Village back then, it might have been a good thing. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and turned to look at the Beast Emperor. The Beast Emperor pondered for a while and shook his head. "He's just a wisp of divine soul now. It's meaningless to kill him. Forget it, let them go." "Thank you." Li Feng thanked him profusely. The Beast Emperor looked at Li Feng, then at Sanguis, and said with a ferocious expression, "But remember this, when we return to Divine Land, I will definitely find you and tear you into pieces." "Return to Divine Land," Sanguis murmured and laughed. "I'm afraid that will depend on whether you have the ability to do so. Just you wait and see." The Beast Emperor smiled coldly. "Let's go." With a wave of his hand, Sanguis took Li Feng and flew away without looking back. Sigh. What a pity. Looking at Li Feng's back, Qin Feiyang shook his head regretfully. Then, with a thought, the 3,000 clones disappeared into thin air. The 3,000 sword shadows also disappeared. The white-eyed wolf said, "Little Qinzi, you actually care about him. Otherwise, with your personality, you wouldn't hesitate at all." Qin Feiyang remained silent. Although he didn't want to admit it, it was the truth. He couldn't bear to kill Li Feng. The entire Cloud Mountain village was left with only one son. If he killed him, the Cloud Mountain village's bloodline would be completely cut off. And all of this was because of the dragons. If the dragons didn't massacre the Cloud Mountain village, how would Li Feng become like this? In fact, in the end, Li Feng's goal was the same as his, to eliminate the dragons. However, Li Feng's method was more extreme. Let's wait and see. The current Li Feng hadn't completely demonized yet. Because at least he kept his promise and wouldn't hurt the beasts in hell. If the day came when he demonized, he would personally end Li Feng's life. Who are you? How dare you impersonate Qin Feiyang? Suddenly, there was an angry roar. The blood-red giant tiger was staring at Qin Feiyang with an unfriendly gaze. But it didn't dare to attack. Impersonate? Qin Feiyang was stunned. The real one was standing here. How did it become an impersonation? You said just now that they are the people that Lord Qingyu wants to kill. But now you're letting them go. Doesn't this prove that you're lying to me? Since you're lying to me, if you're not an impersonator, then what are you? The blood-red giant tiger said. Qin Feiyang was stunned. This explanation was quite reasonable. Wang Ming said, You blind guy, didn't you hear Li Feng call him Qin Dage just now? Calling him Qin Dage. Does that prove that he's Qin Feiyang? Ridiculous. You're very strong, but don't forget that this is hell. You'd better follow me to the ancient city obediently and wait for Lord Qingyu's punishment. The blood-red giant tiger said. Hearing those words, Qin Feiyang and the others all had a helpless expression. The white-eyed wolf said, Little Qinzi, why don't you prove it? How? Before we left, Lord Qingyu didn't give us anything like a token. Qin Feiyang said. The beast emperor and the others couldn't help frowning. Looking at the blood-red giant tiger's attitude, it wouldn't let them go easily if they didn't prove it. If they insisted on leaving, the blood-red giant tiger definitely wouldn't be able to stop them. But then there would definitely be a lot of trouble. Therefore, they really had to clarify this matter. Besides, the blood-red giant tiger did this to protect Qin Feiyang's reputation. After all, if someone impersonated him, it would damage Qin Feiyang's image and reputation. Therefore, the blood-red giant tiger also had good intentions. If they hurt it because of this, wouldn't it seem that they were cruel and unscrupulous? I know a way to prove your identity. The blood-red giant tiger looked at Qin Feiyang and said. What way? Qin Feiyang said. Although I haven't seen Qin Feiyang and don't know what Qin Feiyang looks like, I've heard rumors about him. He has activated a heaven-defying battle soul, the Eye of Heaven. If you're really Qin Feiyang, then activate the Eye of Heaven and show me. The blood-red giant tiger said. Eye of Heaven? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and said with a smile. You should have said so earlier. After saying that, he activated the dragon soul, and the Eye of Heaven appeared. The blood-red giant tiger looked at the eye between the dragon soul's eyebrows and suddenly released divine power, and a blood moon appeared. The blood-red giant tiger said, Copy it and see. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. What a cautious guy. Then he followed the tiger's words and copied the blood moon. It's indeed the Eye of Heaven. The blood-red giant tiger's eyes trembled and hurriedly knelt on the ground, respectfully saying, Greetings, Lord. There's no problem now, right? Qin Feiyang asked. No. A battle soul like the Eye of Heaven is one of a kind. So there's definitely no problem with your identity. If I offended you earlier, please forgive me, my lord. The blood-red giant tiger panicked. It's fine. You're also protecting my reputation. I should thank you. Get up quickly. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Thank me? The blood-red giant tiger was stunned. It stood up and looked up and down at Qin Feiyang. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. As the rumors say, you're a very special human. The blood-red giant tiger said. Haha. Qin Feiyang laughed and said, All right, I still have to go to the forest of gods and demons. I won't stay any longer. Forest of gods and demons? The blood-red giant tiger was stunned and asked, Does that mean you're already planning to leave hell? Not yet. I'm just going to the forest of gods and demons to try my luck, and see if I can comprehend a type of law. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Then you have to be careful. The forest of gods and demons is very dangerous. I used to have a few companions. After entering the forest of gods and demons, they never returned. The blood-red giant tiger said with a hint of melancholy. Thank you. I'll be careful. If you have time, tell the other ferocious beasts what I look like and let them spread the news. Otherwise, I'll have to prove myself again. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. The blood-red giant tiger smiled embarrassedly and nodded. All right. We'll meet again if fate allows. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and gestured for Wang Ming to leave. With a wave of his hand, Wang Ming swept everyone up and disappeared at lightning speed. Did you hear that? Immediately spread Qin Feiyang's appearance for this emperor. Also, tell them to be more observant so that they don't accidentally injure Qin Feiyang. The blood-red giant tiger retracted its gaze and shouted at the beasts around it. Yes. The herd of beasts immediately dispersed and rushed in all directions. Chapter 27:12. Day by day, year by year passed. Although there would be some troubles along the way, with the strength of Qin Feiyang and the rest, they could easily solve it. One day, a vast forest entered their sight. The forest was endless, the mountains were undulating, and the ancient trees towered into the sky. As for those ancient trees, they were unimaginably thick and solid. Every single one of them required several people to surround. In fact, some ancient trees required dozens of people to surround. The vines in the forest were like giant pythons, entangling everywhere, filled with a strong aura. However, there was no aura of beasts in the mountain, only dead silence. This kind of dead silence made one a little scared. Swish! Qin Feiyang and his group stopped outside, covered in dust. They curiously sized up the forest. This was the divine demon forest? On the surface, other than the atmosphere being a little strange, there didn't seem to be any danger. This divine demon forest can't be looked at with ordinary eyes. The Beast Emperor said in a deep voice. Among the group, he was undoubtedly the most qualified to speak. Because this wasn't his first time here. Then what kind of danger is there in this forest? Frenzy was curious. Any kind of danger might exist. In short, if you want to go in, you must be fully prepared. The Beast Emperor said. Isn't that the same as not saying anything? Frenzy was speechless. To be honest, although I have been to hell so many times, I have never gone deep into the divine demon forest. The Beast Emperor shook his head. Then how do you know that any kind of danger might exist? Frenzy asked. Of course I know. Although I haven't gone deep into the divine demon forest, I have entered it before. That was when the hell of the underworld first opened. At that time, Long Zun, Yizhong, this Emperor Long Zun, various ancestral dragons, as well as countless dragons. It was our first time here and we didn't know the situation in the divine demon forest, so we barged in without any worries. But guess what happened in the end? In the end, it was Long Zun who activated the space-time law and brought us out. Otherwise, the entire dragon clan would have been wiped out that time. The Beast Emperor said in a deep voice. What? Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. This seemed a little too outrageous. What dangers did you encounter when you entered the mythical forest? Madman asked curiously. Behemoth illusion. The Beast Emperor said. Behemoth? Illusion? Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. Don't underestimate the illusions here. The illusions here are many times more powerful than the illusions we encountered in Fallen Valley. No matter how strong a person's temperament is, it will still be difficult for them to escape. The most important thing is, normal illusions only confuse the mind and won't cause any harm to the body. However, not only can the illusions here confuse your mind, they can also pose a fatal threat to your body. For example, if you are injured in the illusion, you will also be injured. If you die in the illusion, then you will really die. Back then, I almost died in an illusion. The Beast Emperor said. That's a little scary. Qin Feiyang and the others mumbled. Back then, after Long Zun let everyone out of the mythical forest, he made a conclusion. Everyone has encountered an illusion, but every illusion is different. We guess that this should be a test of one's mind. The Beast Emperor said. I see. Qin Feiyang was enlightened and asked. What about the behemoths? The Beast Emperor scanned the forest in front of him and said. The behemoths are naturally the ferocious beasts in the mythical forest. There are ferocious beasts here? Qin Feiyang was stunned. It looks so calm. There shouldn't be any ferocious beasts here. Of course there are. Furthermore, the ferocious beasts here are extremely powerful. The most terrifying thing is that each of them has a supreme divine artifact and a divine art. The Beast Emperor said. So powerful? Then why don't we sense the aura of the ferocious beasts? Wang Ming was suspicious. Because the mythical forest is a domain. Although it looks like there is nothing around the mythical forest, there is actually an invisible domain. This domain covers the entire mythical forest and can seal off all auras. Only when you step into the mythical forest will you truly realize how terrifying it is. The Beast Emperor said. Domain? Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other and scanned the sky above the mythical forest. Indeed, they didn't see anything. I'll go take a look, Yang Li said and flew forward. Don't go. The Beast Emperor immediately shouted. Yang Li was instantly shocked and stopped in his tracks to look at the Beast Emperor suspiciously. Don't be rash. The Beast Emperor glared at Yang Li and said in a deep voice, Once you enter the mythical forest, there is no way out. What? Yang Li's gaze trembled as he looked at the mythical forest in shock. One could only enter and not exit. It is easy to enter this domain, but one has to go through many dangers to exit from the other side, which is the mythical square. In other words, the exit of the mythical forest is the mythical square, the Beast Emperor said. Wang Ming looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, Young master, are we going in now or? Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and scanned the surroundings with a frown. Why can't I see anyone? That's right. Didn't we release the news long ago? Logically speaking, there should be people rushing to the mythical forest. Lunatic slapped his head and looked around suspiciously. How can they be faster than us? Wang Ming shook his head. That's right. We activated the supreme level auxiliary divine art the entire time. As for the others, they're either weak or don't have supreme level auxiliary divine arts. Even if they do, they wouldn't dare to activate it. That's because activating the supreme level auxiliary divine art consumes too much divine power. Besides, just because there isn't one here doesn't mean there isn't one elsewhere. After all, the mythical forest is so huge, they could be in another direction. Yang Li said. That's true. Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at the Beast Emperor trio with a smile. It must be tough for you guys to travel for the past 10-odd years. You should rest first. Okay. The three of them nodded. They looked around and found a secluded valley not far away on the left. Inside the valley, there was a pack of blood wolves at the Nine Heavens realm. However, when Qin Feiyang and the others landed in the valley, the pack of blood wolves immediately ran away. We'll rest here for the time being, Qin Feiyang said. Everyone nodded. Wang Ming and Yang Li sat cross-legged on the ground and threw divine power pills into their mouths. Then they took out a bunch of divine crystals to refine and absorb. That way they would recover faster. As for Qin Feiyang, Lunatic and White-Eyed Wolf, they didn't do anything along the way, so they naturally didn't need to rest. Old man. Lunatic suddenly looked at the Beast Emperor and said, Didn't you say that the beasts in the mythical forest all have supreme-level divine weapons and divine arts? Yes. The Beast Emperor nodded. Since there are supreme-level divine weapons and divine arts, does that mean there are heaven-defying divine weapons and divine arts as well? Lunatic asked. Logically speaking, there should be, but I don't know if there are any. The Beast Emperor thought for a moment. Lunatic chuckled. This mythical forest is really something to look forward to. Look forward to. The Beast Emperor's mouth twitched. I won't see you if you want to go in, but you can't force me to go in. Look at how timid you are. Lunatic looked down on him. Say what you want. In any case, I didn't plan to go in from the beginning. After you enter the mythical forest, I'll go directly to the mythical square to wait for you, the Beast Emperor said indifferently. Lunatic raised his middle finger. Qin Feiyang glanced at the Beast Emperor. It seemed that the mythical forest wasn't a good place. Otherwise, the Beast Emperor wouldn't be so afraid. Qin Feiyang asked, Where's the safe path? Over there. The Beast Emperor pointed to the mountains on the right and said, It's not far from us. We'll be there in an hour. Safe path. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and frowned. Do you think the ancestral dragons might be waiting for us at the safe path? The Beast Emperor paused for a moment and nodded. Well, it might be possible. The 7 ancestral dragons definitely wouldn't let it go. The best way to kill Qin Feiyang was to ambush them at the entrance of the safe path. This way, they would be able to kill them before they could react. Qin Feiyang said, "Go and rest. Take us to the safe path later." Okay. The Beast Emperor nodded and sat cross-legged on the ground, closing his eyes to rest. Qin Feiyang left the valley and stood at the peak of a giant mountain, looking at the mythical forest. "What are you looking at?" Lunatic and White-Eyed Wolf flew to the peak and looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. "I'm wondering if the mythical forest is suppressing something like the Fallen Valley?" Qin Feiyang said. "Suppressing something?" Lunatic and White-Eyed Wolf were taken aback. "Otherwise, why would there be an invisible domain here? And we can only enter and not leave?" Qin Feiyang said. Hearing this, the two of them became excited. If it was suppressing something, it must be a heaven-defying divine item like the Blood Demon Tower. "White-Eyed Wolf, before you entered the Nether King's Hell, didn't you say that you had to come? What is your reason?" Qin Feiyang suddenly looked at White-Eyed Wolf and frowned. "Yes, I'm here for the Blood Demon Tower. What about you?" Lunatic also looked at White-Eyed Wolf in confusion. It seemed that all these years, the ingrate had only been cultivating and cultivating. He had not done anything else. If I didn't say that, would you let me in?" White-Eyed Wolf looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled slyly. "You bastard." Qin Feiyang immediately sent a kick over. "Why are you angry? Doesn't this prove that I was right to come here? If I didn't come to the Nether King's Hell, would I have gone to the Nether King's ancient city? If I didn't go to the Nether King's ancient city, would I have broken through to the greater success stage so quickly?" White-Eyed Wolf dodged to the side and picked his nose proudly. Qin Feiyang and Lunatic looked at each other speechlessly. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.